This story follows a man who once forged an empire from nothing, starting with just a single piece of straw. At first, they tossed him around as worthless, but later he turned that label into a mission, snatching up cast-off junk and giving it a brand new life. And that's how he finally clawed his way to owning everything the world had to offer. Then the story ripped into a dark cave, and right there we found Takaya, bolted from a pack of goblins that slammed after him, right on his heels. He was terrified out of his mind, because he knew he had zero strength to fight back. And they'd put him down on the spot the moment they caught his trail. A flash of lightning blasted down, frying the goblins that were hunting our guy in that very instant. Takaya spun around, and there it was, a student from his own class had swooped in and saved him. The class rep couldn't hide his disappointment when he saw Takaya, so weak he couldn't even take down goblins on his own. Takaya bowed an apology, swearing he'd find a way to help others. Then the moment a monster showed up, his power vanished like it never existed. The class rep snapped, "Stop wasting time," and ordered him to regroup with the other students, so they turned right back and headed to them. And out of nowhere, a bus crashed deep in the middle of the forest. Then the students on it vanished like they got ripped straight into another world. And up to this point, they'd done whatever it took to stay alive, scrapping with monsters, hauling in supplies, and praying it was enough. The class representative stepped up and took charge, because everyone trusted him to deliver every single time. Then the class rep barked at Takaya to go butcher the boar those other students had hunted. Takaya had no choice, he had to listen. They mocked him for being worthless, and for only being good enough to handle filthy jobs like this. Then the class rep blurted out everyone's names, shouting, "Stop what you're doing, listen up." And he told them straight that it's been a whole month since their bus smashed into the forest. And somehow, just about every student except the adults survived it, even though their phones still wouldn't work. So it meant they weren't on Japan or Earth at all, because they were somewhere else entirely. So yeah, they've got zero choice but to swallow the truth. They've been thrown into another world. They've only made it this far because they unlocked some crazy unknown powers and skills. Some fighters can swing weapons, while others unlock healing magic, or even grab other support spells to keep the whole crew alive. And boom, magic time, because even the class rep was a lightning mage. So wait, do all these fantasy things just blend in like everyday life here? Because in this world, a person's worth is judged by one thing, what they can do. But right in the middle of them all, there was only one person who couldn't awaken a single ability to Kaya Nagami. The class rep snapped that they couldn't keep a freeloader in their ranks. This guy only showed up to wreck the monster courses. They could just track down a village, fork over some cash to the locals to handle the butchering cheap, and still have enough left to feed one more mouth. So basically, the class rep called for a vote, letting everyone decide the outcome the democratic way. To decide whether to keep Takaya or throw him out. When he heard the news, shock hit him like a punch. When the votes finally got counted, the class rep slammed the result down. Takaya was getting exiled. The vote sealed it by the majority, while Takaya's hope crumbled into pure despair. Our blonde student Sujezu latched onto Takaya with an arm locked tight, growling that he had to finish the work he was assigned before he even thought about leaving. And Takaya trembled, terrified Sujezu might swing at him, since he'd gotten used to getting bullied by Swagetsu and the rest. Swagetsu mocked Takaya while he hacked up the boar, then sneered, "How on earth can you stand that filthy stench?" Even the class rep threw in a nasty little jab, saying this kind of work was totally beneath a guy like Takaya. He was good for nothing because he had zero abilities and couldn't do anything with his life. It felt like the only thing Takaya was meant to do was play the korba, and he absolutely hated work like that. But he had no other choice. His whole life had been this way, again and again, with no escape. No matter how hard he tried, he could never find a place where he belonged. And in the end, he was stuck doing all the stuff nobody else wanted to touch right then. He yanked a magic stone from the boar monster's corpse, and Swagetsu leaned in and demanded to know what the hell it was. Takaya shot back that yeah, magic stones like these usually pop out of monsters' bodies, and the village would totally trade for them. But he didn't buy that this one was worth much at all. But Swagetsu still yanked the magic stone for himself, yelling it was payment for having the audacity to make him stare at Takaya's face. He dared Takaya to say a word, tightening his grip just enough to choke him, while Takaya struggled to breathe. And the class rep saw it and snapped into action, yanking Swagetsu back, because once Takaya got exiled, that bully wasn't allowed to call him a classmate anymore. Getsu slammed to a stop, but he wouldn't let him off easy. Then he thought, why not slap a collar on Takaya and make him haul chores until he finally drops dead? and yeah, the idea hit him like a game. But the class rep wouldn't let that slide, because if it happened, it would smash his image in front of everyone. To keep his good guy reputation intact, he slipped Takaya a handful of coins and even a dismantling knife as a parting gift, because he wanted him to have at least a fighting shot of surviving out there. But Takaya knows one thing: without help, he'd last only a short time by himself and then it's over. Other people didn't care at all. They swore it was a necessary sacrifice, the kind you make to cut off freeloaders who never lift a finger to help the group. So the class rep called out Takaya, "You've already been doing a ton just by disappearing," and made it clear, if anyone wanted to survive, they'd better quit being lazy, stay together, and grind like him. So yeah, once that was said, the class rep ditched Takaya right then, because it was finally time for him to slip out. Takaya got yanked out of the group as those students spit on him on the way. He sobbed because even the cruel life he'd already endured couldn't prepare him for what came next. Right as he was about to leave, a student suddenly shouted his name and stopped him in his tracks. He grabbed the magic stone and hauled it all the way back from earlier. She slipped it back from Swaiju in secret, swore Takaya needed it most since he'd collected it with that stone, and figured maybe, just maybe, he could squeeze out a little money to keep surviving. Takaya shot her a grateful smile and thanked her for looking out for him. And she prayed he'd be okay out there, then swore he'd return later once things finally calmed down for everyone else. She kept telling herself things would snap back to normal one day. Until then, she just prayed he'd stay safe and take care of himself. Takaya waved her off, already fearing he might not come back, but he still felt the biggest gratitude for Minakami for being kind to him. After he said goodbye to her, Takaya realized the one thing that never shifted in his life: he still had nowhere to call home. Right now, all he's got to make it through is a handful of coins, a magic stone, and a butcher knife somehow. But he had absolutely no clue what he'd do next. As he pushed deeper toward the nearby town, Takaya figured he wasn't sticking around for long, so he said, "Forget the saving." He threw every last coin into making the best memories he could before the end. He strode through the town and spotted every kind of creature, real humans and wild non-humans all mixed together. Even though he still couldn't read a single thing around town, he stared at a bottle and figured it had to be booze. Since he was basically doomed anyway, he figured, why not? He just wanted a taste of booze too, and maybe a few girls too, anything to make sure he doesn't go down dying a virgin. But then a girl clung to him, hugging him tight with one clear goal: sleeping with him for money. Takaya's eyes widened when he realized her lower half was more like a snake. He snapped into panic, then hurriedly made his excuses and bolted from there. Takaya ditched the town behind him and strode on for a bit. A good ways off from it, he finally spotted a rock, dropped down beside it, and poured out his grief over everything his life had become. He stared down the bottle of booze he'd hauled along, and he just chugged it in one go, downing every last drop he could. Then the bitterness hit and he just spilled the bulk of it out, no holding back. Takaya's eyes locked onto the butcher knife he'd picked up, and with his emotions shattered, all he could think was, let everyone die right now. So instead of dragging it out, he sliced his wrist, then collapsed, consciousness slipping away fast. As death crept in, he remembered the brutal truth: through every school year, he'd been the only one left out because everyone else just refused to stand beside him, and basically said he'll be alone for life. After a while, someone caught him that morning and asked, "Takaya, are you okay?" Takaya jolted awake inch by inch, until consciousness finally started to slam back into him. Then he spotted a girl standing there with a few guys behind her, and the second he opened his eyes, they all looked like they'd finally exhaled. She raced to party leader Deku and confirmed the boy was awake, and the whole group practically burst with relief. Takaya felt something was terribly off, because by now his wrist should have slid and he should have already died. Everyone went silent and stared in disbelief when they heard he tried to take his own life. Takaya started feeling like a total loser. He couldn't even go through with suicide properly, and that brutal failure kept hammering home just how worthless his life felt. Sam, the girl, and the other guys stared, horrified, as Takaya tried to end his life with a dismantling knife. They laughed it off and basically said, "No way, Takaya really tried to end his life with that thing, didn't he?" Then the guy rushed over to lift Takaya's spirits, swore they'd stay by his side for now, and promised they'd see him off the next morning. Takaya couldn't figure out why they were helping him in the first place. Then they started introducing themselves. Merle was the girl standing there, a full-on priestess. In the middle stood their leader, Deku, knight armor and all, while off to the left was Roa, their archer, ready to loose the next shot. Takaya stepped in right after and dropped his introduction like a bold first punch. And the whole party marched him back to town, escorting him all the way. On her journey, Merle kept hearing Takaya's tale ever since he showed up in this world with the others, and she couldn't help but feel a little bad for him. Tons of people told him it was a good thing Takuya ditched everyone else, or that it was straight up dumb to camp in the forest like that. And then he turned to Takaya and demanded to know what kind of job he'd end up doing for the party. Takaya snapped back that all he could manage were small chores, handling the mess, even butchering the monsters they hunted, because with zero talent to lean on, he could only do so much. Roa couldn't believe it because it basically proved Takaya wasn't some beginner, he was a proper processor, which was a serious, respected line of work. They leaned in and told Takaya, basically, a processor is the one who takes magic beast corpses, plants, and flowers and grinds them down into usable materials. And look, when the hunters catch their prey, they don't waste time, they butcher it, turn it into meat, and feed the whole operation. But Takaya shrugged it off, thinking it wasn't that impressive, because in this town, tons of people could pull off the same thing. But Roa didn't let that slide. She shut them down immediately at level 1, and if you want to be a professional processor, you're going to need aptitude around level 2 or 3. In this world, the level system felt way scaled down, like it only ran from 1 to 100, barely a tenth of what you'd expect. Yet from this tiny explanation, Takaya couldn't figure out much about levels. Roa's jaw drops. Takaya seriously doesn't know his own level, even though the stone he was carrying in that bag was a dead giveaway magic stone, the kind only a clueless nobody could never just stumble into. Takaya told them he pulled it straight from the heart of a dead boar, and he could reap them pretty often, like it was no big deal at all. Takaya dreamed that if life let him, he'd master martial arts or even magic. But then Roa snapped out that Takaya didn't even get how rare and precious magic stones were, especially the red one sitting in his own hand. Merle couldn't believe he didn't even know that. And since Takaya had zero clue, they drilled it into him that magic stones were the key ingredient for forging magic wands and brewing potions. To pull those off, you've got to have at least level 3 dismantling skills. Deku figured if Takaya can pull off red magic stones at beginner level, then he's got to be sitting on power, level 3 or even higher. So yeah, Takaya was sitting on way more potential than this level 2 archer Road ever even dreamed of. And Merle flat out told me Roa was obsessed with brothels too. Deku told him if you buckle down with real training right now and level up clean, you'll unlock even more rare skills, and who knows, you might be able to butcher a dragon. Takaya nearly couldn't breathe when he realized he actually mattered, and hearing that he had that kind of potential hit him like a wall. Merle leaned in and asked why he wouldn't just swing by their guild, since he clearly had nowhere else to go. And that was that. They'll train Takaya to test just how strong he really is, and they'll show him what else is out there in the processor world too, if they can. He'd also uncover any secret powers he might have, because Takaya would pick the perfect profession for him based on what he was really capable of. He finally saw his real worth, tossed the same self-crushing thoughts he'd been stuck in, and that's what pushed him to try ending it. Only he still didn't realize the talents waiting inside him. And her guild was desperate for talents like Takaya. Takaya just can't wrap his head around it. After being exiled from his party, he expected to be nothing, and somehow, he's still proving he's not worthless at all. And if someone out there needed him, he wouldn't get a single second to even buy it. So he decided to roll with Merle, test his skills, then try to join their guild if he could. Deku and Roa were fired up by his spirit, and honestly, we were all relieved Takaya finally had that energy back. After that gloomy mood earlier, they stepped up and promised to treat Takaya to something great, no matter what happened later, so he could shove all the bad thoughts aside and finally relax. Merle leaned in and told Takaya, "You're already one of us, one of our comrades." They climbed aboard with him as the ship tore off toward the city where their guild lived. When they finally hit the city, a massive port sprawled in front of them, towering over everything. Takaya straight up couldn't wrap his head around it, how a city this massive even existed in this world. Merle just brushed it off like it was nothing, saying there were even bigger ones out there, so huge this place would look like a tiny speck. She told him, "Out there the world is huge, so don't you dare waste your life by thinking ever again that this is all there is." Takaya finally understood how stupid he was to think he'd kill himself just to get trapped in some cage called class. Then they dragged him straight to Merle's guild, turns out it's called Sirat, and right there, Takaya finally managed to read everything he could. And Merle leaned in and told him the truth, this was the official, most used language in the whole world. nothing like that town he'd been in earlier where everyone spoke a local tongue. Inside the guild, Roa leaned in and shouted for Mida, the receptionist, and demanded to know if the president was here. She told him the president was locked in his room. Roa shot back, "Who's that kid you dragged with you?" then smirked, "He's a promising applicant, and we need to introduce him to the guildmaster fast." Then they slipped into the guildmaster's room and immediately stumbled on a jaw-dropping scene. Actually, it's downright creepy. The guildmaster's playing pig, and a tiny girl comes in and tramples him, who was punishing him and forcing some twisted fantasy on him like it was a game. The moment they realized they had some guests coming over, panic hit instantly. Rudra introduced himself on the spot as the guildmaster of Sirat, while the girl beside him snapped at the guildmaster to put his mini-pig down out of sight, away from the guest's eyes. After that, they shifted gears and the guildmaster carefully checked the magic stone, then leaned in and asked if that boy really had the kind of potential they thought he did. Guildmaster Rudra asked Faria, the vice president, if she truly believed the kid had real talent, and she shot back that they should go see for themselves. She pulled out this tree paper that measured the dormant potential inside every person, then ripped it open and laid it on the ground. And then he leaned in and begged Takaya to press his finger right onto the very center of the paper. Utakaya followed the instructions and quickly realized this paper was more than just paper. It revealed a person's potential as a tree, spelling out the skills they could master and the heights they could reach. Takaya's nerves exploded as he carefully pressed his finger down. But when he got zero response, he convinced himself he was worthless, exactly like the class rep had warned. Then everyone started peppering Takaya with requests, "Hey, look behind you," and they wouldn't drop it, because his measurements blew past every expectation anyone ever had. As they stared at Takaya's results in sheer disbelief, including Takaya, the vice president, Faria said the tree of talent grows differently for everyone. Some people have towering trees that punch straight into the heavens, while others are buried under vines that sprawl and swallow the whole earth. But with Takaya, the paper didn't just spit out results, it unleashed roots, proving he had the foundation for every production and processing system on Earth, and that he could master everything out there. Takaya could barely wrap his head around it. After being branded worthless and cast out, he still somehow believed he could master everything. Faria said that if they kicked him out, the person who did it would come crawling back, crying and kneeling before them. When they finally get it that a person's worth can't be judged by what's on the surface, she tells Takuya his skills assessment doesn't just pass him, it proves he's the real deal. With a spark like that inside him, the world's not letting him go ever. And she couldn't help smiling because their guild snatched a guy like him before anyone else could. Takaya finally heard all of it, and it lit up his chest, because for so long he'd been stuck living in misery, constantly measuring himself against everyone else and never truly giving his heart to anything. But now everything had flipped, totally different rules, totally different world. Then he grabbed his student ID and hurled it straight into the fire, like he was slamming the door on his old life and charging straight into his future, because this is where the real journey begins. So he chose to live as a processor in this world, and he vowed to push himself until he uncovered every last bit of power sleeping inside him. Soon enough, the whole guild threw a wild celebration party to toast their newest recruit, Takaya. And while everyone was losing themselves in pure fun, Merle snapped that Takaya shouldn't chug like last time, because look how that ended when he took his own life. And she makes it crystal clear, he doesn't get to worry about a thing because they're comrades now and they've got each other's backs. Takaya's heart got tugged by her words then. Then the receptionist marched in to meet Takaya, the future powerhouse of their guild, and all the girls promptly crowded way too close to him. Merle snapped, "No way, this is on me," and pushed Takaya to learn all those things herself. Takaya was getting crushed in the middle of a sea of girls, so he begged Dake and Roa for help. But Deku just laughed and told him to enjoy his popular phase or he'd regret missing out on the ride. Roa, meanwhile, was stuck on one thing, those girls from the brothels back there. The party raged on, and for the very first time in Takaya's life, he actually had the time of his life. That night hit different, he slept like a dream, and then morning finally rolled in. He jolted awake right in the middle of everyone, and it looked like they'd all passed out mid-drink. Thinking hard, Takaya sat down and relived how he'd always mocked parties from a distance, because he never realized hanging with friends and making noise could feel this damn fun. Right then, this lady stepped right up to him, and she'd been stuck there waiting until Takaya finally stirred and woke up. Takaya froze when she called his name, then she went on to say she'd heard about him from Rudra and couldn't stop wondering what kind of guy he really was. She even said he had a cute face. But Takaya barely had time to process it before a magic spell snapped into place and trapped her in its glowing grip. Then, no warning at all, he got yanked out of nowhere and teleported to some sky-high perch. Once Takaya clocked the height, goosebumps erupted across his entire body. Just as he was about to drop into a free fall, he plummeted straight down and crashed to the ground. More portals tore open as they went, slipping him from golem factories into the brutal climb of the mountains. From the demon world, he burst straight for the sea. Then he dropped straight back into the Sea Rat Guild, utterly sobered by the crash. The lady told him, "Sure, you were born with talent, but that doesn't mean you get to waste your time messing around, especially when you're going to be my disciple." Takaya kept pressing her with the same question, demanding to know who she really was. And now that she's sure he's sober again, she's on the verge of answering his question. Right then, Rudra burst in and greeted the sage, only to find the sage was actually the lady herself, who snapped that she'd come to reclaim her disciple, exactly like she promised. The vice president noted that the sage always seemed just as fired up as ever, and that ever kept calling Faria Shorty, and told her how stunned she was that they tracked down a real gem out there, naming Takaya. When Merle spotted him, she blurted out to Sage, "What are you doing to Takaya?" And since Merle had never met Sage, Rudra stepped in and introduced him to everyone as both the Sage and their guild advisor. She was one of the rare level 9 masterclass mages, and when Rudra called her, she knew this wasn't going to be small. Because Sage couldn't stand to see Takaya's talent wasted, she vowed to nurture him the right way, so she stepped in and trained him herself as her disciple. She'd been an old friend of Rudra, and she couldn't take her eyes off Takaya's talent. Takaya couldn't shake the dread of being alone, even if it was just for training, yet he still craved the chance to kick off a brand new life as a guild member. Then Rudra dropped the bomb. He'd heard rumors about Takaya's backstory, and those brutal circumstances jolted Rudra back to his own life, so he clenched his fists, shut the door on everything, and sprinted straight away from his past. But now he refuses to let Takaya get trapped by the same past that Rudra once survived, because he won't watch Takaya drown in the same regret. He begged Takaya to let Sage hone his gift, even as he prayed Takaya wouldn't ditch them once fame hit. Takaya couldn't shake the weird feeling that Rudra's words were strangely, painfully familiar. So he nodded and agreed to train under the sage, determined to level up into a real pro and repay everyone who stood by him. He swore he'd do it for everyone in the guild, and every one of them swore right back, promising to hold the line until Takaya came back from training. Takaya waved everyone goodbye, fully knowing this bye was only temporary. Sage always ready to fling open a portal. Takaya launched into it with pure excitement. Then, Takaya and Sage got yanked by teleportation straight to the front of her mansion. She greeted him like a ceremony herself, formal as ever, and crowned him as the Sage of the Forest, then shot a chilling warning straight at him. Once you step in, there's no going back. And now Takaya couldn't stop looking forward to it. He swore he was ready for any brutal trial that came his way. She loved his energy and told him to grab any empty room he wanted for the night. As the day rolled on, Takaya drifted through the mansion, staring in disbelief at its sheer grandeur, and the wildest part hit him hard. He wasn't just visiting, he was actually staying here. While he was praying to finally find a clean room, he stumbled into a room and boom, mud-like golems were waiting there. He noticed what was going on, panic hit, and he bolted, then rushed off with some lame excuse. He rushed to the other rooms and nope, everywhere he looked, it was the same chaotic scene. Takaya realized he'd totally underestimated this world, and now survival out here felt downright brutal. So he ended up snooping through nearly every room, leaving only that final one untouched. He cracked the door open with blazing optimism, only to have reality slam him with a whole different kind of answer. A naked girl was right there in the middle of changing at the exact same time. Sage suddenly appeared behind him and said, "I forgot to mention my other disciple is a girl," but it was already way too late. The girl on the inside snapped, got furious, and smacked our boy right away, as the poor boy screamed that nobody ever told him a thing about the other disciple. Later, she snapped him with a vicious slap across the face. I introduced Takaya to her, joked that he looked a bit frail, and then made it clear this kid was packed with potential. Then, as she kept introducing the girl, right when she started praising her body before saying her name, the girl snapped at the master. "Don't you dare say any more vulgar stuff, or she'd cut him." She let out a chuckle, then warned the girl that if she kept acting like that, she'd never lose her virginity. and just as the girl nearly whipped out her blade, she apologized before things went too far and backed off, stopping herself from harassing her again. She pointed at that girl and said, "That's Sabaki, she's from some tiny island nation out there, miles from anywhere." And her parents kept pushing her, asking her to let this girl step in and help with the research. Takaya even apologized to Sabaki earlier, swearing he wound up there because every other room was cursed. Yet Sabaki knows he's telling the truth because her room is the only one in this place that isn't cursed. When Takaya held out his hand to greet Sabaki, she shot him a warning, don't get ahead of himself. And she'd never ever trust someone like him because the moment she saw him, she was already done with him. And he made it crystal clear. No matter how much the master brags on him, a weak guy like him won't last a second if he's dumped into a brutal place like her homeland. She couldn't help but grin at how smoothly those two were getting along, so she told them to shake hands, only for Sabaki to refuse outright, because she refused to lay her hands on a man like him. Takaya panicked about what to do next, and on top of that, it didn't look like he had a single safe spot to sleep in this huge mansion. I kept needling him, telling him he could crash in her room, big space, endless nights, and if he wanted, they'd have some fun. Takaya jolted in surprise, and she leaned in to tell him one serious rule. Every day, he'd have to grind, starting with cleaning that mansion. And that's how Takaya's training kicked off, right under the sage's watch. And they forced him to slave away like a beast of burden, cooking, doing laundry, everything. Even when he tried to clean up and shop, trouble still kept popping up, right under Master Ever's nose. By the end of it all, he'd finally get to dive into books in the mansion's library. After this routine, a whole month slid by, and Takaya felt like he'd done nothing but waste time, wondering if it was even worth trying anymore at this point. Then Master Ever yanked his attention and demanded, "Is this another errand?" Then she leaned in and stared at him up close, really taking him in, and finally realized he was standing at level 4 right now. Sabaki stepped down after Ever called her over, and Ever leaned in, asking if she was ready. She made Takaya pack his bags fast. Food and medicine piled in before he even had time to ask why. They slammed it down. Starting now, Takaya and Tsubaki would grind out a survival life in the sage's forest, with one rule: they couldn't return until they wiped out the assignment. Takaya could barely contain his excitement, because this was finally real training, the kind that would put him to the test for real. But Sabaki snapped back. Takaya's plan didn't work for her at all, because she said their levels were way too far apart. Then Sage leaned in and told him their mission: brew a double high potion and forge a brand new knife made only for Takaya, and Sabaki knew those were level 5 items. And Sage thought they could totally handle these assignments, but what about Takaya? He never even learned how to make a knife, so what now? Sage told Sabaki to teach Takaya how to forge a blade, and Sabaki froze in shock, then blurted out, "Wait, do you mean you want me to pass down our family's traditional smithing skills to someone like Takaya?" Ever went silent, then ordered, "I'll be right here," while she watched their training and carefully drove the talisman into Kaya's neck, wishing them to give it everything before she vanished through a portal. Takaya and Tsubaki felt like the world had ditched them, and now, of all times, they were stranded on their own. Takaya admitted he wasn't cut out for fighting, so he decided to lean on Tsubaki, because he knew she'd protect him. Then she made it crystal clear, if he dragged her down even a little, she wouldn't even think twice, she'd cut him down like it was nothing. After that, they barreled into the forest, disappearing fast into the dark, and it was crawling with monsters. Takaya was sprinting for his life, fleeing a monster hot on his heels. Right when everything looked doomed, Tsubaki burst in with a blur of motion, snatched the moment, and carved the monster down in a single, earth-shaking katana strike. Felt real gratitude for her saving him. She told him to man up a little, stop flinching at every tiny thing, and start finding some courage. She could barely process that Takaya might have any talent at all, so she pressed him. What achievements had he pulled off so far? Takaya awkwardly confessed that he hasn't made a single thing yet, and it was painfully embarrassing. And for the last month, all he managed to do was cram himself with books on medical herbs and ores, nothing else, just that. He was dead sure of one thing: if Tsubaki ever swallowed the wrong poisonous plant by accident, he could whip up an antidote on the spot. But she refused to lean on him, and she wouldn't let this chance slip away for a second. Or she dreaded the thought of having to hand down her precious family's smithing secrets to some tourist like him. For now, they spotted a cave and staked their claim for the night, ready to hole up and catch their breath. Night fell, and while everyone rested, Sabaki slipped out to write Master Ever a letter, telling him they'd made it to the cave safely. Takaya leaned in and told her, "You did amazing work." And he cooked up the meal for everyone, then handed her a taste taste too, grinning as he insisted it was absolutely delicious. She tried to refuse, but her growling stomach begged her to go. Takaya shrugged like it was nothing, and she went ahead and dug into it anyway. And he absolutely devoured it because it tasted insanely good. Takaya lit up and said it was great he was here because Tsubaki couldn't cook worth a damn and he absolutely could. That's when she snapped and got furious. Takaya quickly apologized for losing control. Right then, she snapped, "Shut up," because it looked like trouble had company. Outside the cave, deep growls rolled out into the night like a warning. And Tsubaki stayed on high alert because they were still deep in the forest. Two hostile eyes burned in the darkness, glaring like they knew exactly who to hunt. Tsubaki snapped at Takaya to sprint back to the mansion, right now, because this danger was way bigger than they could survive. The wolf beast exploded forward and lunged straight for her. She slammed her sword up to keep it back, even as the force shoved her step after step. Takaya was terrified for her, but she wasn't about to go down without a fight. As she kicked the wolf back, then snapped upright on. She hit her feet hard, eyes blazing with raw, unstoppable fury. Tsubaki's body started to shift. She began transforming into her true demi-human form. And Takaya finally saw the truth. She wasn't just strong, she was a total beast. Tsubaki squared up and went toe-to-toe with the wolf monster, and the clash was about to explode. Then the monster snapped its head toward Takaya and lunged in to attack him. Takaya couldn't sprint any faster, and when Tsubaki yelled for him to run, why on earth didn't he bolt? Now the monster lunged for Takaya, but right in the middle. Oh wow, its power crumbled, and then it snapped into a human body. Takaya saw it clearly was a girl, and her body was burning with a nasty fever. Tsubaki froze for a second, stunned that the wolf still crushed her even after it was already wounded. Takaya remembered a page from a book. Wolf girl's symptoms matched the poison from the Gurenbeni mushroom. Yeah, it was nasty stuff, but the good news, it could be detoxed. Tsubaki's jaw dropped when Takaya actually decided he'd save the wolf girl who just attacked them. Which straight up breaks nature's rules because the weak are meant to perish while the strong walk away. So when this wolf gets poisoned by a mushroom, it's basically nature itself beating it. Takaya said the same thing, those rules weed everyone out by the natural law of survival of the fittest, and nobody should try to mess with it. But there it was, Muriel, Deku, Roa, and basically everyone else from the Sea Rat Guild, who didn't judge him and handed him a second chance. So yeah, now he was ready to do the same for this kid, just like that. Tsubaki never thought he'd actually plant his feet and fight for something, because it's what he chose. As Takaya hauled himself up, he vowed, "If I have to, I'll handle it alone. I'll go grab the herbs myself." He hoisted the injured wolf girl onto his shoulders and sprinted with all he had. He tried to soothe her with his voice, promising that if they just kept moving a little longer, they'd stumble onto herbs before it was too late. But then it hits, he's way too weak, his balance slips, and he's seconds from going down. Then Tsubaki swept in and helped him back up. He thanked Tsubaki and she finally gave her first name, Akin, then promised she'd sprint off to track down the ingredients for the medicine. Takaya thanked Akin for helping him, but the moment he did, she totally panicked and insisted he not misunderstand a thing. Yet in her eyes, he was still nothing but a failure. She took a hard look at everything, flipped her whole opinion, and decided to step in and help. Then Akane grabbed her bag and slipped out alone, hunting herbs with her own hands. And Takaya used his skills to work those ingredients like a pro. He brewed a double high potion packed with detox power. And just as he finished, they smashed through their very first assignment, but then came the catch. Even though the potion was already brewed, the injured wolf girl couldn't swallow it like this, so Takaya didn't even hesitate. He snatched the potion and gulped it straight down. Then he gulped it down and pushed it right through his own mouth to the wolf girl's mouth, making sure she actually drank. Akin just froze in shock, then blurted out what he was doing. Takaya shot back that it was a medical trick for emergencies. Now they just had to sit tight and wait as the medicine kicked in. The very next morning, Akin jolted awake, her mind racing. How was the wolf doing? But then she caught the exact same wolf girl lapping up Takaya's lips while calling him master, and Akin erupted, yelling, "What the hell is this even a medical procedure?" Then Takaya jolted awake, baffled. Why in the world was this wolf girl calling him master? The wolf girl locked eyes with him and confessed, "I've always been out here, alone and miserable, but when the master saved me, that emptiness vanished." Takaya leaned in and told her, "You're free, stop thinking of me like your master." But she refused to let him go, swearing she couldn't stand being alone anymore. Then a candy basically spelled it out. The wolf girl wanted Takaya to own up and take care of her. Takaya didn't even flinch when she said she wanted to be with him and asked his name, so he asked hers back. Akin explained that he'd already saved her, so he should let her have one too, because beasts don't usually come with names. Takaya paused for a second, then decided to call the wolf girl Mike. Once Mike fully recovered, everyone finally breathed easy, because the double high potion had officially passed the test. And that means their final move is clear: craft a level 5 knife or it's game over. Akin can't shake the fear, they might be stuck for days just to gather enough iron ore. Takaya flipped through the book hunting for anything useful, then Mike's eyes snapped to it because he recognized that stone from the picture. And she swore she knew exactly where it was, and if it was for her master, she'd grab it for him no matter what. Mike shifted into her wolf form and bolted outside, but Takaya couldn't shake the question. Was this move cheating on their assignment? Connie reckoned this could save them serious time. No matter what, his job wasn't to grab anything, it was to deal with that knife, plain and simple, and Mike, she looked like she was ready to pay her back the only way she knew. After trailing Mike for a while, they finally stumbled into another cave. And right when they dove in, they stumbled straight into a stash of skystones. A candy already knew that secret and swore it was precious, something they couldn't touch at their current level, yet it was still special enough to be called a true treasure. And when Takaya told Mike, he could only sit back and say, "She's amazing." Then the candy calls him over and points to something she spots deep inside the cave. The whole place was stacked with iron ore like a mountain, and thanks to Wolf Mike, they finally got to train the right way, using all of it. She stared in disbelief as Takaya's totally pointless meddling somehow turned into pure help, and it hit him again. No matter what, as long as you're still alive, the world is packed with possibilities. Now he started forging the blade from iron ore, piece by piece. As Akin hammered steel, it finally hit her. This was why her master had paired her with Takaya. At first, he might look like a pathetic, creepy pervert, but he still smashed through the trial with power she can't even touch, and somehow ended up gaining a new comrade in Skystone 2. That power was kindness when he passed to her and she learned to wield it. After grinding for a while, Takaya finally forged a level 5 dagger. Then just like that, the second assignment got wiped clean. She shot Mike a huge thank you, and that's exactly how they landed a super rare souvenir for Master 2, the Skystone. He also thanked Akena for jumping in and helping, because without her there, he never would have pulled it all off. And now Akin even admitted that, for a coward, he somehow pulled off being seriously cool around that time. She didn't want him to twist it into some weird thing in his head. Just like that, the sage burst onto the scene, portal in hand, and she made sure her disciples had finished both assignments. She used the talisman to see everything, and because Takaya's finally gotten stronger with his skills, she told him the news: his first job is here. Now he's getting hauled back to the guild along with Akin and the divine wolf girl Mike. Takaya never saw it coming. Getting his first official job this fast blew his mind. Then he and the others tore back to Bay Road City, where the Sea Rat Guild was waiting. Takaya clocked it immediately. He and the others weren't getting teleported straight to the guild, and when he pressed Master Ever, she told him bluntly, "Showing up to a client while you look like that is a no-go." Takaya suddenly realized he reeked from hours in the forest, and his clothes were so dusty they looked like they'd been dragged through the dirt. Ever seen him walk into a barbershop first and change everything? Then he'd get cleaned up for good and slip into fresh new clothes. Mike and the others got fresh clothes too, and now both of them looked like they'd just stepped out as full-on pro guild members. Akin sealed the whole thing by tying the blade shuriken with her final touch. Right there on Takaya's waist, she snapped into realization. She'd named the blade for him, and then she warned him with shaking certainty, never ever let go of that sword. After that, they tore off toward the guild, and there, the guild members beamed at him and welcomed him back with open, warm smiles. He kept asking himself where Deku was, but right then, of course, Deku looked way too busy to show up. Meanwhile, Merle just burst in, flashed a bright grin at Takaya, and greeted him like nothing could ruin her day. But when she spotted Takaya strutting back with two mistresses, shock hit her like a truck, and Takaya rushed to fix the misunderstanding, while Akin stayed hidden behind him for reasons she wouldn't explain. And when they asked, she admitted, "I'm just terrible at talking to people the first time I meet them." Merle finally got it. Akin wasn't anything supernatural, she was just Takaya's training buddy, and that's the part everyone missed. Aside from that, she leaned in, grinned, and told him good luck right before he stepped into his very first job. She also told Mike to make damn sure Takaya was guarded tight, because the client they were about to meet was trouble with a pulse. Takaya pushed into the guild master's room and froze, because the clients were right there. Hood up, faces buried in shadows on the way, for some reason nobody questioned. And yeah, right behind those guests, the client dragged in a broken spear like it was part of the deal. Feria immediately snapped to Takaya's attention, warning him to stay sharp because these weren't run-of-the-mill demons from the underworld. They were high-ranking horrors from succubus general class. She warned him that humans and demons have been locked in war for thousands of years, still tense as hell, but somehow clinging to a ceasefire from both sides. So depending on how Takaya treats those demons, they could spark a new war or hold it back. And suddenly that kind of weight slammed onto his shoulders. And with a polite smile, he asked the guests if they'd come for him. Demons yanked their hoods off, and the whole room instantly felt darker. And the demon girl nodded, telling him, "I'm here for you," because she desperately needed a level 9 creator or processor's help. She flashed a grin and told everyone her name was Murmuru, and right behind her stood the one taking care of her. Letty murmured that she made sure he'd understand one thing: she was one of the 4 heavenly kings ruling the underworld, while Takaya, for some reason, kept getting distracted by the little fabric on her body. Out of nowhere, Murmuru started pleading with him to help her craft a brand new demon spear. Takaya couldn't believe how casual Murmuru looked for a demon general, and Sage ever couldn't stop staring at the wild sight of a demon bowing to a human. Murmuru begged him because if he didn't forge her a brand new demon spear, she could get killed. Turns out not long ago, Murmuru got hit with the news that in just 1 month she'd have to step up and take her place as one of the 4 heavenly kings. And she would also inherit her family's weapon, the demon tri-spear of darkness, though Murmuru still couldn't stand the general vibe. She saw all of it as pure trouble, and politics made her sick. She just prayed the wars would end, that everyone would learn to love each other so she could finally live in peace. Letty snapped a reminder to Murmuru. Her mom would not be happy when she found out Murmuru was just wasting time, and meanwhile her demon spear was left abandoned in a filthy room. She fretted that the spear might get ruined, but Murmuru was totally confident nothing bad would happen. So she pulled the demon spear out just to prove to Letty that it was completely fine. Then right in the next heartbeat, the demon's spear of darkness snapped clean in 2, leaving both of them utterly stunned. Yeah, that part was guaranteed. Because if Murmuru's mother finds out the demon's spear shattered, she'll literally murder her. Murmuru clutched Letty close and blurted, "Is there any way we can get a new spear made before your mom finds out?" Then added, "We'll have a court workshop process the artisan work for it." But Letty shot back, "That long ago, that man quit his post. He'd finally had enough of being worked to the bone by some selfish noble." A nervous mutter hangs in the air, because they're not crazy enough to risk bringing that spear to any other creator in the demon world. So Letty basically said, "Let's hunt for someone in the human world who can actually handle this." But the scary part was finding a human who could work magic as well as a demon, and who could also craft masterpieces like a true creator. So while she hunted for a level 9 creator to forge a demon spear, she ended up overheating and frying the words right out of Deku. He was bragging about having a level 9 creator in their guild. Then Deku couldn't stop himself after Murmuru basically played him, claiming some insanely hot woman was hunting for a genius creator. Feria snapped Deku's mouth shut as punishment for spilling info about a comrade. Feria warned Takaya it was pure high-stakes chaos, because a demon general was betting everything on someone who definitely wasn't a true level 9 creator right now. Then Deku went and bragged anyway. Sage kept reassuring Takaya, saying he'd be totally fine, because he'd already proved his talent and skill during training again and again. She figured this job would be perfect for him, finally spreading his name across the world, until she realized that if he refused, he'd make a demon general his enemy and get blacklisted by the whole nation. Now it's all on Takaya. He has to decide whether to accept that request or shut it down, all while his mind is racing. Letty promised him they'd fork over whatever he wanted: cash, rare metals, anything at all, just name it and they'd pay. If he agrees right now, Letty will throw herself into this deal, contract-free, fully his. Deku couldn't believe his luck. He thought an offer like that was basically a miracle. But Takaya couldn't wrap his head around it. Why would Letty risk everything for Murmuru? Letty snapped back that her entire clan lives or dies with Murmuru and the demon spear. And if it was for them, she'd gladly face death any second, just to keep them safe. Takaya didn't even feel like she was lying. So he finally got it, and just like that, he agreed to forge the demon spear. Ever thought he'd drop that line? Then boom, Mike did too. And Murmuru threw her arms around him, thanking him over and over for saying yes to her request. When Takaya told her he wasn't a level 9 creator yet, her heart cracked like glass, and pressed him, demanding to know exactly what he planned to do next. He admitted he might not be a genius, then told me he'd switch tactics and handle the whole mess with a few backup plans. And that's when he'd slam the plan into action and use the skystone right here. Instead of forging a brand new spear, he welded the shattered demon's spear back together. Murmuru had no clue, and Takaya suddenly realized. He finally clocked it. He was just gonna slap the spear back together with glue. And you know what I gotta ask, what happened to the spear's original strength? Takaya shot back that it made perfect sense, because in his world, people literally built rockers by welding junk together. So he told Faria to snag the nearest blacksmith, but she shot back that there was no need at all. Because they'd been remodeling their guild's basement for the past month, building something special for him. Takaya tore downstairs and froze, because what he saw was unreal. A whole personal workshop, just for him and nobody else. Faria told Rudra he dumped his ugly rings, then she admitted she sold some of her dresses too, so they ended up with just enough debt to turn their basement into a real workshop. And every time she learns more about Takaya, it feels like she's only grown more sure she made the right choice. Takaya was deeply moved. This was the first time he'd ever found a true place he could call home, and now he was fired up to live up to every single expectation people had for him. After that, time flew as Takaya threw himself into his workshop, working side by side with Akin. Then he demanded she melt the skystone and fire up the furnace. She shot him a question, "You got a plan? We can't melt the skystone again later." And he grinned, saying he already had one. And told Mike to stay on guard and make sure nothing distracts him while he works, because he had to keep his full focus on the job. Then he told Murmuru to hand over the spear, so he grabbed it, stared it down, and yep, it was exactly what he expected. The spirit didn't crack, even as time kept piling on. But someone deliberately slammed it apart with brute force, meaning that spear wasn't ruined at all and could still be put back together. While Mike kept watch outside, he dove straight into some serious work. Takaya had Akin hand him the materials he needed, one piece at a time. Sol, yeah, even though she had zero clue how it'd turn out, still rolled the dice. Takaya clung to his gut feeling and pushed to uncover the truth behind this whole scheme. Akane obeyed every instruction and hurled himself into the task, melting the skystone completely. Takaya tossed in some ransom moss right in the mix. He cranked the cool metal and hammered it into a pliable material, something that could finally be used to weld the demon's spear together. And just like that, he slammed the last weld into place and pulled off the demon's spear flawlessly. Then he turned to Murmuru and demanded she test the spear by flooding it with magic. And the second she finished, a monster burst of magic flooded out of the room like it had been waiting to explode, making everyone inside that room lean in, dying to know what happens next. Murmuru couldn't help but grin. The demon's spear was back and it was perfectly whole. She admitted it wasn't truly back to normal, but it had to be convincing enough to trick Mother and the others for a while. So yeah, right there they got saved, and everything finally turned around. And told Takaya he earned that reward just like they'd planned. But right then, they got yanked into collars out of nowhere. Sage herself did it. Looks like she hit him with a demand of her own. She pressed Murumuru and blurted, "Why don't we just become Takaya's slaves?" Takaya leaned in and asked the master what she was up to, and she snapped back that this was strictly business, so he'd better not miss a single bit of the maximum reward for his work. And because he just pulled off a hair-raising, high-risk mission, he earned the right to cash in using his own power and skills. But Takaya insisted this wasn't his intention, and Murmuru shrugged like, "I can live with it." Because that spear meant everything to her, she died defending her family with it. Even with her fear screaming that she'd be tortured as a slave, she still steeled herself for it, because that's the one fate Takaya couldn't stand to see her face. The master leaned in and told him, "Your skill will level up even more with time, and you'll be landing jobs like this again, so he doesn't get to waste time feeling sorry for anyone, and if he keeps pushing, time will eventually hand him everything he craves. Money, honor, even women." So she leaned in and demanded, "Tell me, what do you want with that power? Is it wealth or revenge?" She told him straight up that his creator power could pull off anything. Takaya shot back that if he really had that kind of power, he'd use it to rescue everyone who'd been collared. He swore to rescue everyone who got robbed of their happiness, lifting people out of their suffering like the night itself could be beaten, and rip apart this vicious cycle where only the strongest get to survive. Next, his answer blew everyone away. Then Sage's whole world cracked. She confessed she was only messing with him, joking and teasing his nerves. Then she let out a soft Murmuru and Letty, and he ordered them to retreat to their homes with the spear in hand. "But come back with the payments, because if you don't, we'll drag you back and deal with you for good." Takaya exhaled in relief that nothing had turned into a real disaster, Then Murmuru showed up to thank him all over again. Man, once he said that she couldn't help but trust him more right then and there. She watched everyone get sent off, then headed out to report back to her mother about the spear's safety, only to find Letty wishing their lady Murmuru a safe trip, and that totally caught her off guard. Letty cut in and reminded everyone, I'm the one who offered to serve Takaya, so for now, I'll work just like you said here in the Gulf as my payment. Takaya asked, didn't he just shut it all down? Letty shot back that she'd handle it herself. She was putting her bet on the talented guy all on her own. Right out of nowhere, she grabbed him and kissed him in front of everyone, leaving the whole crowd stunned and scrambling for words. And right then, Merle came rushing in the second she heard the job was finished. Then he went completely wide-eyed when he saw the demon maid leaning in and kissing Takaya right there. Takaya stood frozen, then she snapped, bursting out on him like a bomb. And she snapped, you idiot, while he was scrambling to fix the misunderstandings. Takaya practically bounced with relief after nailing his first job, then debuted as CRAT's one and only exclusive creator and processor. Over time, his potions exploded in popularity. People had never seen purity like that in any other brew before. This spread Takaya's name fast, turning him into the C-Rat's exclusive creator, proving off genius-level create skills, until word finally reached someone important. Akira, yeah, the very same class rep who'd already banished Takaya earlier. Meanwhile, the guild clamps down on everyone with one rule: you can buy and sell no more than 5 potions per person. Since their demands were exploding in the market, Rudra's grin stretched wide. Every Takaya-made item flew off the shelves, and their guild finally wouldn't be broke anymore. Then Faria quickly reminded Guildmaster Rudra, don't squeeze Takaya, he's been pushing himself way too hard for way too long. Rudra even threw the same warning in there: if he pushed her disciple too hard, she'd castrate him. Rudra kept nodding and leaned in, asking Letty how Takaya was doing right now. She told him, you're so buried in work you've forgotten how to eat, and you don't even sleep. Mike snapped that Master Takaya was doing way too much, and she caught herself wondering, should she call for help and haul him out of the workshop? Right then, Meryl burst in and greeted everyone with a bright, cheerful good morning. Rudra and Faria hit on a plan, then handed Merle a brand new quest: get Takaya out of that workshop and drag him outside so he can finally cut loose and have some fun. She stormed into the workshop and found Takaya grinding away like it was just another normal day. He staggered around with huge, dark circles clawing at his tired eyes. She leaned in and asked, are you really forgetting our promise, the one where, once he became a pro, he'd build a party with her? Takaya still remembers the promise, but he's like, not yet. He needs to wrap up what he's doing first before he can move on. Then Deku and Roa grabbed him and hauled him out of the workshop, practically shooing him away, and even the guildmaster didn't bat an eye. Once they finally got Takaya out with them, Merle couldn't stop smiling, because she was the first to spot him, and before she even blinked, he was surrounded by girls. She spilled that she'd always dreamed of getting closer to Takaya. Right then, Deku and Roa snapped to attention. Those urgent plans couldn't wait, and they had to run off and handle everything immediately. They ditched Takaya with Merle like they were terrified to break the moment. Takaya didn't see it coming. Those two just ditched him out of nowhere. Then Merle leaned in and told him, come on, we've got to get moving too. Meanwhile, thanks to Takaya's talisman, Sage Ever had his master's gaze locked on him. Sut, Faria, and Mike love teasing her, but they also can't shake their bad habit of sneaking peeks at her disciples' lives. Life took a wild turn. Takaya got a full tour of the city with Merle showing him around, and she forced him to test a bunch of wild ideas. Then they hit shop after shop and wandered from place to place. And every so often, people couldn't help but feel a sting of jealousy, like, come on, how was he getting to go on a date with Merle, that gorgeous girl? He said he could practically feel everyone staring at them, so they should ditch the moment and hit the ocean next, because he couldn't stop craving the sight of it. Merle loved the plan and jumped in, promising to lead him straight to the sea. Master Ever was roaring for her disciple, begging him to finally make Merle his. While they wandered the busy port, Merle snapped at Takaya that he'd been pushing himself way too hard lately. And if anything's gnawing at him, she's determined to sit close and hear every word. Takaya's worried face tightened as he stared into the distance, then blurted, so why did you choose to become a priestess? She didn't see that question coming at all, and before she could even catch her breath, she blurted out how ever since she was little she'd always admired priests, guys who helped the poor and the injured. Takaya couldn't stop thinking she was on top of the world. Because next to her tale, Takaya's trouble got solved way easier, thanks to the guild stepping in. And they handed him nothing but a creator's path, Then Merle snapped, telling him he was spiraling and overthinking everything. As they pushed deeper through the streets, the lower district finally came into view. She told me that folks here have it way rougher than back where she lives, because in this world nobody gets truly blessed. She said she was hunting priests for sure, but she also knew the truth: she couldn't rescue everyone who suffers. And the only reason she managed to save Takaya was dumb luck, because she was powerless too. Takaya leaned in and told her, "It's not like that." And she'd already proved she was a walking miracle. His cut wrist healed up because she used her incredible healing talent on him back then. But even though he was convinced she'd keep saving lives, Merle looked totally out of it after what Takaya just said. Now Takaya kept going, reluctantly ripping apart those boar monsters, only because the class rep ordered him to. Every time he caught sight of those scars, the pain from his tragic past came crashing back like it was brand new. He still can't say for sure, does he have creator in his blood now, or is he still chained to the ghost of his past? And he's nothing like Merle, who carved her own destiny instead of letting it drag her down. Merle said he looked totally clueless about who she was. She leaned in, ready to finally reveal the real skill she's been hiding. They got ambushed out of nowhere, straight up hit with a lightning spell, and Takaya found himself trapped in a tightening circle right then. Takaya got blindsided as someone rolled up and greeted him right in front of his face. It wasn't just anyone, they came in a rush, led straight by Akira, their class rep, and his former classmates. Takaya's stomach dropped. Merle got hit by the lightning spell again, her body crumpled to the ground, and fear clenched his heart. Takaya got smashed by that very same spell the next second. Then his strength crumbled, his eyes shut, and he lost consciousness, while someone from Akira's party rushed in and caught him. They managed to grab him in an instant, while Merle was left frozen, helpless, and unable to stop it. After a while, Takaya snapped awake and found himself in a dim, shadowy room. Then it hit him: there was a collar latched around his neck, and the second it got yanked, Takaya snapped to it. He'd been trapped in a cave, staring at treasure right in front of him. Akira, the class rep, stormed in and told him, "This is everything, the treasure the whole class collected." It hit Takaya's eyes like a flashing warning. This wasn't just theft, it was straight up plunder. Akira bragged that he'd been smart his whole life, born into a rich family and destined for success, until the moment they got shoved into that other world and everything was ripped away from him. That's why Akira decided he'd get it all back no matter what. He grabbed Takaya and yanked him up, saying, he bragged that he'd heard rumors about Takaya's insane talent. He said they probably kicked him out thinking he was useless, but now that Takaya's got real power, everything's different, so he wants Takaya to go back to his classmates. Takaya didn't hide it, he was a full-on crafter under the Seret Guild, and he had zero attachments to any classmate whatsoever. And every single thing that went down here had to be reported to his master, with backup set to arrive any moment now. Akira snapped at him to wake up, drilling into Takaya that he didn't belong in this world, and that the only family he truly had was them, his classmates. Another classmate chimed in, saying that's exactly why Takaya should double-cross the Sea Rat Guild and help them steal it all for themselves. And to top it off, he heard a rumor that the Sea Rat Guild was hiding even more rare skill users. Takaya can't even process it. These guys have been quietly digging up intel on the guild and Sage's mansion the whole time, and now they're finally laying their hands on everything. Akira then snapped that the Sirat Guild was about to become their slaves, and he demanded Takaya lay out every single detail about them. If he steps in to help them, he'll shoot straight to the top and become the most popular kid in their class overnight. Takaya shut them down cold, making it crystal clear that popularity, class, and all that other meaningless crap wouldn't get him anywhere. And he finally realized every promise they'd made to him was nothing but a straight-up lie. The second Takaya burst out of Akira's tight little world, he finally saw what he truly was, and for the first time, he found a place where he actually belonged. Meanwhile, Akira was nothing but a vile creep, and he would never, ever hear him out. Akira snapped, "So what the hell are you, Takaya, if you think I'm disgusting?" Then he fired back that the Sea Rat Guild only took Takaya in for one thing: his skills. But Takaya knows the truth. Akira's never gonna get it, and people like her just don't understand. That anger lit a fire under Akira, and he decided to put those people to the test, see how far their care for Takaya really went. As Shuriken snatched Takaya's blade, the fight finally ignited, and sliced straight through his right arm, leaving Takaya reeling in unbearable pain. Akira's chuckle cut through the screams of pain as the agony ripped out of him, because this whole scene was being broadcast straight to Takaya's friends. After seeing Takaya lose his dominant arm and lose his crafting skills for good, they might decide to stop coming. Takaya never saw it coming. Akira had dropped that far and was still out here clawing into people and hurting them. Akira snapped that he and his classmates were about to hit the Sea Rat Guild, then shoved the job onto Takaya, go pry out their weak spots and dig up the rare skills they've been hiding. He shoved him hard until the truth spilled out, and Akira let them keep Takaya, at least for now, as their pet. Because honestly, living with just one hand was already a lost cause for him. Takaya muttered that all his life he'd convinced himself he was completely worthless. But then Merle stepped in and flipped everything. She helped him with no strings attached, not asking for a thing back. This time, the favor was his to pay back. He vowed to never betray the comrades who handed him a brand new life. One classmate with an axe snapped that the negotiations were dead and promised he'd execute Takaya immediately. Then boom, the entire cave started shaking like it was about to collapse. And everybody could feel it, something terrifying was about to crash down on them. Akira just knew it, only someone from Sirad could have done this. Then right when Takaya needed a lifeline, Merle burst in to save him, and she even brought Mike along with her. The summoners from Akira's crew were freaking out, because their familiars suddenly snapped and stopped obeying them. They swallowed their doubts, then chose that big wolf and threw their loyalty behind it. While the fight raged head-on against Merle, some of their members were blasted away like they got hit by a cannon. Rage boiled in her as those guys dared to kidnap Takaya. Akira felt his nerves screaming, but he clenched his resolve and decided to fight back, and the other students echoed the same fire, convinced they wouldn't lose to anyone. Akira snapped that the pressure they felt was a skill the wolf was using, so they better lock into their formation and tear into the enemies. Merle ordered Mike to handle every side mess, then sprinted off to save Takaya herself. Akira jumped in, rallying the terrified classmates and pushing them to stand their ground and battle that wolf. While the frontline students were busy drawing all the fire, he dared the mages in his class to blast the strongest fire magic they could, even if it scorched some of their own classmates. The mage's heart clenched for her classmates, but Akira slammed the courage into her and pushed her to act. Meanwhile, Merle hurried straight to Takaya, and she saw he was bleeding like crazy, so she grabbed the chance to treat his wounds right away. But then Sugetsu stormed up behind her and struck without a shred of respect, no matter that she was a woman. And he warned her, "Don't take it personally if I end up breaking it." Merle's grin vanished, rage set in, and she dropped her guard, ready to smash back with her fists. Sugetsu's eyes lit up. She had guts for a priest, and it totally shocked him. Ashi admitted that she'd prayed to be a priest and mend the poor and wounded, but the god handed her a cruel gift instead, one that could hurt people. Now she'll unleash her skill and guard Takaya with her life. Takaya had no idea Merle could fight, yet she was grinding to become a priestess. So he probably said some seriously insensitive stuff without realizing who she really was. Now Merle burst into a fierce fight against Sugetsu, and while he kept telling himself she was nothing but just a woman, she juked his strikes at the last second and smashed a kick into his back before he could even react. Sugetsu froze in shock when she slammed into him, even though he could have sworn his attack hit first. Sugetsu burst forward, snapped her punch aside, and before she could, she struck him again, coming at him from a whole new angle. He can't figure out why his attacks keep missing, then it hits him. Merle's power is visualization, letting her shape exactly what her opponents see. And then, right in that instant, he slips in with a surprise strike from a totally different angle. While she kept Sugetsu busy, Deku slipped up on Takaya from the side and whispered that Merle's skill was the real secret she'd been hiding. Her talent was just okay, but it lined up perfectly with another secret skill she kept hidden. A power that lets you shove time forward in a blink. Takaya finally clocked it. Merle wasn't just pretending. She had real secret skills inside the Sea Rat Guild. Sugetsu couldn't even wrap his head around it. He got taken down by a woman. Merle didn't just fight, she seized the win as the victor of the battle. At that point, Mike started dropping the other classmates left and right, one after another. Akira barked orders and had his men wipe out the cannons. They unleashed cannonballs at Mike, raining death his way. Sure, it looked to them like they'd finally dealt some real damage. Mike was stronger than that because she wasn't just a wolf, she was a divine one. She tore through the entire student body all by herself, leaving chaos in her wake. And the students finally get it, now they're totally outmatched. Akira gets it too, and some students start shouting that they should ditch this place and bolt before it's too late. Akira made their last vanguards rush the wolf and pin it in place so it couldn't slip away. And he ordered them to pull the monster's focus away so Akira could slip in with a heavier, stronger strike. One of the students suddenly felt a chill and blurted to Akira, "Are we just disposable pawns to you?" Akira yanked him by the collar and made it crystal clear, no matter what they said, they'd never understand his plans. Because Akira just kept stubbornly charging ahead with zero brains to spare, the other students started eyeing him like something was off. And it hit them, there was no trust left. You tossed their weapons to the ground and surrendered on the spot while Akira got left standing alone. Akira got hit with the sting of being left behind and couldn't stop wondering why it had to happen to him. Who was the chosen one supposed to be? Someone just showed up and he told him he wasn't picked for anything, like no special honor, just the fact that they had to obey him, period. The sage finally arrived and made one thing crystal clear. She and the rest of their guild picked Takaya of their own choice, and they'd do anything for him. The fight was finally done, but Takaya was still reeling, bleeding out hard, his eyes going dim by the second, while Meryl and Mike kept shouting in pure panic and tears. Trying to keep him awake, Takaya said this was probably the only way to repay their favor. He refused to sell his comrades, even if it could cost him his life. With that severed hand, he might never be able to craft another thing again. Master finally snapped at him to stop falling apart over petty stuff, and he knew he'd pushed way too far. Takaya shrugged it off like it was nothing, like what they'd done for some worthless guy like him didn't even compare. Deku snapped at him to stop thinking like that, because Takaya is their only hope, and there's no way anyone's going to steal the future he's fighting for. Deku grabbed Takaya's hand and demanded he hand it over to him. Then he pulled out a healing skill and mended the brutal cut on Takaya's hand. In mere seconds, Takaya's hand snapped back to normal like the whole thing never even happened. Merle leaned in and told him the truth. Deku was the one who healed him the day they found Takaya, and yeah, he was a legit, full-fledged healer. Takaya didn't know it, but their guild's secret was stacked with ultra-rare skill users. Merle seized the power to fast-forward time, while Deku's gift let him rewind it back. Deku told everyone he'd always dreamed of being a macho, manly knight, then life slammed him in the face when his training hit a dead end. And somehow, instead of glory, he ended up unlocking a healing power. At first, he shook his head and swore it didn't feel like real manly power for a knight. Then bam, he ran right into Merle, and it turns out she was getting hit with the same kind of problems too. And after all the chaos, they finally carved out their spot in this world. Deku kept going. For someone like Akira, if you've got no skills, you're basically worthless, and if you do, you're still just going to end up like everyone else. Then he smirked, because his weak eyes and his shady intentions were already doing all the talking. But Deku's convinced Takaya is packed with insane talent, and he also gets the ache in everyone's heart. So yeah, he was the kind of guy everyone looked at like their guild's last hope, and then he got power enough to rewrite the entire world. They don't want him stuck carrying it all by himself. They want him to feel how solid they are so he can lean on them anytime. That's just how their guild rolls. Everyone backs each other up in the stuff they can't do on their own. They all push to keep cheering for Takaya, and it hit him hard. Everyone's words moved him to the core. And after that, he snapped, no more hesitation. And he vowed to give it everything, living his life as the one true, exclusive creator of the Sea Rat Guild. Later on, Akira and the other classmates got snatched and locked up, and Takaya couldn't stop them from demanding, "So, what do we do with them?" Takaya decided to let them go because after living the creator's life, he realized that with one shot, even the messiest things could be repaired. So yeah, these kids have just been ripped out of their old lives, and Takaya's standing there like, they've suffered enough, they deserve a real chance to start fresh. Mike was still seething, ready to smash those guys' heads, and even the sage agreed, for no bunch of rascals was allowed to lay a finger on her precious disciple. Deku blurted out that the student count didn't match Takaya's. 7 students were straight up missing, and Takaya immediately spotted Minakami and a few others weren't there. But knowing her, the same woman who treated him with kindness back then, he couldn't help but feel she's out there thriving somewhere in this world. But nope, those students weren't buying his excuse. They cursed Minakami nonstop, blaming him for screwing them over and leaving them trapped in a huge nightmare with monsters closing in. Minakami let out a gleeful smile. Since the others were gone, there was only one student left. And somehow, it looks like she's moving straight for Takaya's life next, and ripping those roots right out of him. The next morning, when Takaya finally opened his eyes, the mess he was stuck in hit him so hard he couldn't even speak. And right then, Merle showed up, hauling him out of bed to hit breakfast. Then he walked in and saw Mike sprawled in bed with Sage Ever, while Letty was right there too. She bolted out, yelling that Kaya was already scarfing down her third serving before breakfast even showed up. Then Takaya snapped, crying out because Merle totally misunderstood him, and it looks like these girls won't let him breathe, even if he begged them to. So he hauled himself out of bed and tore out through the door. Then out of nowhere, he spotted a stranger, and his gut screamed, Merle. But here's the twist, it was Murmuru, and he was totally wrecked. Letty shot her lady a sharp question. How did you just show up without a call and with that swollen face? Murmuru burst into tears, threw her arms around Takaya, and pleaded for him to follow her into the demon realm. Takaya leaned in and demanded, what's happening? And she immediately spilled the whole story. And after she finally slipped back into the demon realm, she jumped straight into her role as one of the 4 heavenly kings. She practically breathed in relief when nobody clocked the demon spear Takaya fixed. And yeah, part of her really wanted to return the favor herself. But then, thinking Letty was already right there with him, Murmuru couldn't help but feel a jolt of unease. And she just decided, screw it, she'd crash and sleep right now. But while she was curled up napping, her mother barged in and demanded to know if it was really wise to ditch her duties and sleep the way she was. But Murmuru froze like a cat the second she saw her mother here. Out of nowhere, she grabbed the moment and demanded, show me that spear. Her mother spotted it instantly right there in one glance, watching the spear quietly leak holy magic, the kind that had no business existing in a demon spear. Murmuru tried to act clueless, but her mom threw a punch the very next second and, how dare she lie about the demon spear? She snapped at Murmuru to drag the person who fixed it right now. And that's why Murmuru showed up to Takaya with one brutal demand. If she couldn't drag him to her mother, she'd be dead for real. Takaya knew absolutely nothing about the demon realm, and his master pressed him, asking if she was seriously thinking about heading there. Takaya told Murmuru she was his precious first customer, and he swore that getting close to the succubus princess would rake in huge profit for their guild. The sage had the whole ending figured out from the start, and Takaya finally decided to march into the demon realm to help, and Murmuru was so grateful he'd gone that far for her. Next, Takaya talked it over with Guild Master Rudra, and honestly, Rudra had already seen every kind of strange stunt Takaya could pull. And even though he honored his wish to head to the demon realm, he couldn't just let him go alone. He'd mastered the rarest skill on the planet, level 10, right at the very top, maximum, and even in the demon realm, it was still treated like something priceless. So he started plotting to station a few guards right by Takaya. Since they couldn't send a whole crowd, he shut Merle and her party out from going with him, because they'd only be able to function as a team together. And one group can't, so he hit the gas and told the canny guy to take over Letty's reception shift. And he was weighing whether to fire Sage, Ever, and Mike their way. But it looks like Ever was already one step ahead with something big up his sleeve. Rushed in to answer the summons from the Council of 6 Sages. And that's when she decided she was bringing Mike along, making him her bodyguard. Takaya had no clue there were more sages out there, just like Master. Sulfaria laid out what the 6 sages really are, those who fought tooth and nail in the war between humans and demons, then stood guard over humanity when the world went wild. Sage never wanted to go there for real, but that letter they handed her was strapped with a time limit magic spell. Once the clock hit 0, it zapped the recipient straight to the venue. Takaya couldn't believe something like that even existed. Then he started thinking, with my skills, I could build one of these. Sage had secretly been hoping to drag Takaya along too, but because he couldn't make it, her big chance to show off to him got totally crushed. Takaya had no clue his master was that incredible, so why did she suddenly need a bodyguard? And so what else is a sage supposed to do right now? With no other option staring her down, Faria stepped forward because she had to become Takaya's bodyguard. Takaya had no clue how the vice president could fight, but she made it crystal clear. She was going only because there was nobody else who could take the job. She made it crystal clear, sure, she might look small, but don't get it twisted. She was still a force to be reckoned with. Takaya couldn't stop thinking about what kind of fighting style she'd unleash. And just like that, the team was locked in. Letty threw open a portal straight into the demon realm. After they pushed through that realm, boom, teleportation ripped them out and dumped them straight in the middle of the sky, right above the demon realm. Takaya can't stop staring, blown away by just how wild and huge this fantasy world really is. Then Faria demanded he cover his mouth with a cloth, because the demon realm's miasma in the air was poison to them. Takaya could even spot bits of that miasma and start dreaming about how to twist it into some killer craft later. Yeah, and at the same time, he was growing to genuinely love his work as a crafter. Soon, Letty told them they'd reach Murmuru's mother's castle any minute, but then her eyes widened because the teleportation had somehow landed them a little off. They pushed too far and ended up crossing into a different demon's territory. Now the guards are right here. The demons grilled each other like, what the hell are succubus doing in our turf? And thank goodness, Letty managed to slip Takaya and Feria out of sight. So it would have been way worse for humans to get spotted here. Just as things were finally looking up, a nasty miasma drifted in and made Takaya burst into a sudden, uncontrollable sneeze. And the demon was already choking at their throats, fuming even harder that a human had shown up here. Like this whole place was his personal playground for a casual stroll. Feria yelled at Murmuru to grab Takaya and sprint. She'd stay behind, pin down those demons, and race back to catch up soon after. Letty surged forward and fired off a dark bolt to blast her way to victory. Science clocked that Letty was smart, but the demons just cackled at this tiny human who still dared to stand up to them. Feria made it crystal clear she wasn't weak. At her peak, even the ancestors of demons labeled her a nightmare. So when they stepped in, they slammed straight into a fierce battle. While everything spiraled into chaos, Murmuru grabbed Takaya and hauled him straight to her home, and told him the land he could see ahead was hers to claim. The moment they spotted her, those kids and grown-ups lit up. Smiles hit their faces instantly. She was so close with everyone in her territory that they all looked up to her like a hero. But the second they spotted a human here, they snapped into high alert and demanded to know. Lady Murmuru demanded to know why he'd come, and Murmuru made it crystal clear this was the real reason. She picked that human as her special guest, and she demanded they keep it totally secret. When the demon couldn't figure out what was going on, another demon leaned in and muttered that they were probably up to something, right as the demon girl started coughing. Takaya leaned in and grilled Murmuru, asking if that girl was sick. Murmuru rushed to the little one and unleashed her healing magic, washing away the nasty miasma that was tormenting the girl. Murmuru told them straight up, even if demons live here, not every demon, especially kids, has strong enough power yet to push the miasma out of their own bodies. So yeah, keeping the kids safe was one of her jobs too, even among the 4 heavenly kings. But earlier, Takaya shot back into her memory when that demon taunted her, calling her a total failure of a succubus. He snapped with a plan and demanded that Murmudo hand over a borrowed potato. Then he grabbed the potato, shaved it into razor-thin slices, and cooked it until it crumbled into powder. He was gearing up to craft dust masks with this powder, custom-made to blast away miasma and keep it out for good. He might pull off enough powder, but he still panicked. Someone would have to know how to process it out here, and who would craft the masks while he was gone? Right then, 2 demons showed up. Rimai and Yami burst in and said Lady Azasha, Murmuru's mother, sent them here to drag Takaya and Murmuru back to the castle. Takaya didn't deny it. He was actively doing the thing right this moment. Now then, Rimai and Yami figured they could jump in and help too, since they've got their own crafting skills to back them up. Takaya let out a breath of relief. Turns out they were skilled enough to turn that powder into masks for real. After the masks were finished, the little girl from earlier snatched one and tried it on. And finally, she could breathe easy again. Takaya grinned, thrilled that from this point on, kids wouldn't have to live in fear of miasma anymore. And just like that, the little girl ran up to him, grinning, and planted a sweet kiss right on his cheek to say thanks. He was totally shocked because even a kid got. And she's desperate to make some progress too, but right now she just can't. After all of that, they got escorted straight into the castle. And Takaya felt the air here turn cozy, and weirdly different the second he stepped in. Murmuru fired off a question to Remy and Yami about how his mom was feeling right now, and they answered straight up that her mood was nowhere near good. Murmuru had to push forward with a heavy, sad look on her face, while Takaya slipped up behind her and tried to lift her spirits, because he knew the way Murmuru cares for her people would make her mother see her in a whole new light, and maybe she wouldn't end up getting that furious again. But the instant after, Murmuru got blasted off her feet, getting flung back by an attack from a spear screamed through the air and slammed into the wall right beside her. Takaya's eyes went wide when he saw this sight. Then he spotted Murmuru's mom, Lady Azasha, storming out with pure rage because her daughter was late. Takaya stood there in stunned silence, while Yuhai got swept up in a warm welcome from Lady Azasha. She swaggered in and announced she used to be the succubus race's general, and she's the mom of that dumb girl stuck in the wall right now. Now Takaya spun back and checked on Murmuru, and thank goodness she snapped her teeth down and caught the spear midair. She was still alive, thank every star in the sky, and then even Lady Azasha couldn't help it. She basically said Takaya's definitely got to be thinking about it. How did a demon this beautiful and this strong even end up here? He already handed her his seat as Heavenly King, passing it straight down to her daughter. It was Murmuru's ridiculous talent, way beyond her own, that explained everything. To squeeze every last drop of power from the demon spear, she crowned her daughter as general, so one day, when the time came, she could step in and save their entire race. Still, somehow Murmuru wrecked their precious spear, and then, to make it worse, she went and begged a human. She was furious that he dared to lie to her own mother. She drove a brutal kick into her stomach and smashed Murmuru into the wall again. Takaya couldn't shake the urge to slam the brakes and stop this right there, and warned Asasha that she'd crossed the line, and that it was her own daughter who would pay the price. Asasha demanded what he said, then snapped a grip around his neck. As she screamed, she made it brutally clear, some human could never grasp what that spear truly meant to her entire race. And the sin that child heaped on themselves by defying their own mother wasn't light at all. Right then, Murmuru snapped, calling out for mother and ordering her to yank her hands off Takaya. She said she'd pushed herself to do everything the right way, but she won't let her own mother so much as touch Takaya. She'll fight her to the last second if she has to. As Ash's heart sank, her daughter had crushed her hope, and Murmuru decided to die right here, right now, ending everything in one brutal moment. Just as the mom and daughter were about to tear into each other, Takaya lunged in and cut the fight short. He cut right to it and declared he'd forge a brand new magic spear. That's the whole reason he showed up in the first place. As Asha couldn't even wrap her head around it, how could some powerless human possibly forge a demon spear like that? A weapon her family had guarded and passed down for generations. She slammed her hand into the wall behind Takaya and snapped at him not to joke about something like that then. Letty told Asasha that it wasn't hopeless, then pointed out that the guy over there had max-level crafting skills, while Takaya breathed a huge sigh of relief knowing Letty was safe. Her words lit a spark in Asasha's mind. Then she spun to Takaya and warned him it might sound unbelievable, but if Letty was the one saying it, she'd believe every word, because she raised Letty herself and Letty wasn't the type to ever lie. Then she demanded if he forged a brand new magic spear, she'd wipe Murmuru's mistake from the record. No questions asked. But if he botched it, she'd settle the score, punishing Murmuru and Takaya alike. Takaya nodded along and gladly took that deal on himself, owning the whole responsibility. But just like that, they were gone, and Takaya couldn't shake the nerve-wracking feeling. Furia's face lit up. He'd grown bold enough to pull off that kind of bluff just to shield Murmuru, and Furia knows the truth. Takaya may only have the potential to reach max level, but right now he's stuck at level 5. Letty pushed him to put his life first, because she'd been forced to lie for him, and she hated that he had to see her do it. But after what she learned at Sea Rat, she finally understood just how powerful a good lie can be. Furia fought back, insisting their guilt wasn't that big, and then proved it by paying their taxes the honest way. Murmuru pressed Takaya, so what now? And Takaya swore his plan was still the same, forge a brand new demon spear and put everything right. So he brushes it off, tells her not to worry, and forces a bright smile. Then she heard it, and her face lit up in a bright, unstoppable smile. So she snapped to the decision and marched straight to her demon castle, then told him he could turn it into his home base for anything he wanted. She sat inside the demon castle, and since she was one of the 4 heavenly kings, the whole place was locked up tight, sealed behind a powerful magic spell. Murmuru snapped off dispel magic, and the demon castle ripped into view, as hundreds of undeads lined up to welcome Lady Murmuru back. At the entrance, a huge banner hung proudly, shouting, "Dear Lady Murmuru." Takaya clocked that she was basically an idol of the demon realm, and you could tell she absolutely loved the huge welcome she got. Even though she demanded to know who made that banner, Michael straight up claimed, "Yeah, it was me." Because she was coming back with someone huge, someone who'd end up becoming her future husband. Murmuru snapped, spun around, and slammed a kick into Michael so hard his skeleton head popped clean off his body. Her face went bright red, and when she told Takaya it was nothing, you could feel she was trying to brush it off, because the skeleton that had brought him up didn't share that calm energy at all, and it kept chanting Takaya's name over and over. She slammed the skeleton's head down like it was nothing, and flushed even deeper as she urged Takaya to follow her, because she was about to show him his room. Now Letty teased Murmuru too, and even asked if she should escort their future master straight to his room. Murmuru couldn't stomach the humiliation all at once, so he bolted inside. Later, they finally sat down and hashed out how to forge a magic spear, until Furia admitted he'd need alchemy too, and that his current level might slow him down, because it decides whether the final product turns out amazing or falls apart. Takaya demanded to know what powered the demon spear, and Murmuru shot back dark matter made from metal forged from crystallized miasma of the demon realm. Alright, hear me out, Faria said. Takaya had to start by learning how to refine dark matter, so they should jump in tomorrow first thing, and Takaya nodded right away. While Letty was grilling Lady Murmuru on how to set up their rooms, Murmuru just smirked and told her to take the hint. But she hauled him to her own room instead, straight up just to tease Murmuru. They kicked off a heated back and forth about it, and things started to get tense fast. And Faria's fear spiked when she saw just how unstoppable Succubus's stamina really was. Faria dragged him into a room and flat out decided they'd stick together, and that left Murmuru feeling weirdly cheated. That night, Takaya burst into Murmuru's room, shook her awake, and demanded she listen. This was urgent. He jolted awake and immediately demanded answers, asking him what the heck happened. She offered herself, begging him to come here for it, but he shrugged and said he only needed a restroom. Letty decided she'd ride along with him, no question. Or he wasn't asking for help at all. He just wanted directions, then he'd head there himself. Once it was over, a wave of relief hit him hard. But on the way back, he suddenly got twisted up and lost his way. He's a grown man, so why can't he figure out how to find his way back? Then, out of nowhere, a skeleton crept up on him like a shadow in the dark, which sent a jolt through him when he finally realized it was just Velg, Michael's brother, out on patrol right now. Takaya begged Velg for the way back, only to find this castle was a shapeless maze that swallowed you whole. So even he, of all people, was completely clueless right now. It did absolutely nothing. Takaya was just totally, completely lost. He pushed forward alone, hunting the path by himself, and thought the old version of him would have been shaking in terror in a place like this. But that brand new him burned with curiosity for the mystery no one had dared to name yet. As he pushed deeper down the path, his foot caught and he stumbled hard, then crashed to the ground. It crushed him into feeling utterly pathetic, and the only comfort was knowing nobody had eyes on him. Then someone finally spoke up, and suddenly the worst thought hit. What if the girl he liked saw him in a moment like this? Takaya snapped out a quick yes without even thinking. But then he snapped, who said that? Because there was nobody anywhere, just silence. A slime suddenly popped up and yelled that it was him, and he was nothing but a pathetic, shapeless blob lurking in the shadows. Takaya had no clue his life was about to get wrecked by a slime. When he demanded, "Who are you?" the slime shrugged and said he was just a slime drifting through, passing by. But the biggest thing, he grabbed Takaya's attention and demanded to know who he was. Takaya told everyone Lady Murmuru personally invited him, and Slime treated her like a cheeky little brat. He leaned in and asked Takaya if he had a moment after this, because if he did, he'd lead the way and show him exactly where to go. He swore this castle was basically his backyard. Takaya couldn't stop wondering, who on earth was this slime to dare call Murmuru a brat? Then he finally shoved through the door and it blew his mind. A massive library packed with hundreds of books, a place unlike anything he'd ever seen. Slime finally let it slip. This was his very first time hosting a guest from the human world, and he pushed Takaya to read his book and fire back real feedback. Takaya stared at it and his eyes widened, because it wasn't a clue or a poster, it was a manga. And the slime couldn't stop wondering if it could actually sell its way into the human world. In this wild world, the main character was a lone demon king, crushed by loneliness but still ruling with an iron will. And eventually he climbed to the top and ruled the world, a nightmare everyone feared, until his minions started vanishing one by one. Because the demon lord was arrogant even with overwhelming talent, and after his final showdown with the hero, he finally died alone in solitude. Right in his final moments, when he was finally repenting for everything he'd done, he got ripped out of the afterlife, then woke up as a human baby in a brand new world. Slime leaned in and asked, "So, is the story getting interesting or what?" But Takaya was creeped out to the bone by how many lewd scenes piled up across the entire manga. He started grilling whether the hero really needed to hit the sack with every gorgeous girl he rescued. Then Slime just smirked and said, "Duh, that's how everything begins," because eroticism was the spark that birthed all creation. Takaya doesn't think it takes a whole 20 pages just to take off the girls' bottoms. They cracked jokes left and right, and somehow everything felt easy between them. And just like that, the sky cracked open, dawn was already here. The slime partied hard with Takaya, and now it's time to shoot him back where he came from, exactly like it promised. Takaya was having the time of his life, then out of nowhere, the whole place started to roar and shake like an earthquake, ripped right through the ground. Slime snapped at Takuya to hurry back. She needed him right there right now. Takaya cornered a slime and demanded its name. Then the slime smirked and said it would only tell him who it was if Takaya survived. Before that, he sprinted off to Kaya Nagami. Takaya couldn't stop staring. How on earth did that slime know his last name? Then bam, he vanished in a flash and reappeared in his room, torn back from that place. He spotted Murmuru and Letty standing there and they demanded, "Where the heck did you disappear to?" Takaya shot back that somebody had snatched him and hauled him up to the top floor. Letty stared at the floor, and she could barely believe what she was seeing. Feria cut them off, yelling that they had zero time to chat because demons were already tearing into them right then. Murmuru spun around, staring at the wreckage everywhere. And thank goodness no one has been hurt so far. Letty spotted it charging in and screamed at everyone to hit the dirt right now. A savage wave of attack crashed straight toward the floor they stood on. It hit like a total disaster. And the one stalking behind them wasn't some random demon at all, it was another of the 4 heavenly demons. Reigo, people also call him the demon-slaying general, was the one guarding Takaya while Letty kept watch. Reigo moved in with a razor-sharp grin, clearly showing he'd come here for a hidden agenda. Murmuru fired off, "Rigo, what's the point of all this chaos?" And Rigo answered without hesitation. She swung first, so if anyone's getting blamed, it should be her target, not her. Letty can't wrap her head around why he'd say something like that. Then Rigo yanked one of his battered soldiers into place, because this was the very same demon Takaya and the others had run into back in the demon realm. Murmuru stared at Letty and asked, "Wait, didn't you handle all of this back then?" Letty swore she and Feria definitely took them down, and then wiped their memories clean with Takaya's potion. But right then, more demons lurked in the shadows, witnessed it, and raced to tell the others. Letty couldn't shake the guilt after bombing such a crucial mission. Murmuru told her to quit stressing, because she was already set on sorting everything out with Reigo anyway. Now she pressed Reigo for his demands, clear and loud, no confusion. Reigo shot back that he wanted Murmudo to be his bride, to pay for hurting his own kin for no reason at all. Takaya knows it's a lie because he's been hit with the exact same excuse before. Now Takaya was staring at the truth like it burned, because Letty, with her talent, couldn't possibly botch teleportation with that many mistakes, meaning the whole visit was leaked from the very beginning. Murmuru found himself in a total mess the moment he heard about the marriage and the compensation they were dangling as a deal. She glanced over her shoulder and saw Takaya and Letty's faces staring back at her. She couldn't stop thinking, so what's the right move here? Letty shot up first and blasted the request as totally out of line. Then Murmuru immediately tried to shut her down. But Letty roared that the whole thing was pure nonsense. Right there, Enrico was clearly plotting the whole thing from the shadows. Rigo snapped that it was a total baseless accusation and said the humans behind them were already whispering poison, filling their ears and corrupting their hearts. As rage crept up inside him, he muttered under his breath. Murmuru stared at the choice like a cliffhanger, ready to sacrifice herself for everyone's sake. But Letty snapped in and comforted her, insisting it wasn't right and she vowed to guard her heart with her life no matter what, and for that, she shot Reigo a clear answer to his demand, and it didn't leave room for doubt. He better not show up again, like not even then, in fact forget it. Never. Reigo's rage flared the second they insulted him like that, and he snapped the order. His men surged in to attack, while Feria leapt forward and fired off her magic spell even faster. Reigo never even got a chance to react. When he swung, the strike landed on his neck and it looked like it did real damage. Letty snapped with a charged magic blast just for daring to make those outrageous demands of her lady. Reigo got pounded over and over by both of them, and Letty snapped to Lady Murmuru, demanding she jump in too. Murmuru barreled in, swinging her spear, then hurled it at Reigo with every ounce of strength, demanding she never see his face again. Reigo took the spear to the body, then froze, convinced they finally stopped it. Reigo just smirked as the spear tore right through him. He just yanked it free from his own body. His wounds snapped shut in mere moments, and Reigo couldn't help but wonder if that was truly all they had. Murmuru can't believe it. Her hit was a clean, crushing critical, and Feria's arrow should have shredded Reigo's viral organs right through. Reigo's didn't hesitate. He yanked out his own weapon and blasted a wave of savage, sky-cracking magic. It shoved back hard, right at even Letty and Feria. Feria leaned in and said there's a secret hidden inside Reigo's magic sword. And he pointed out that every weapon the 4 heavenly demons carry is packed with its own special power. But right now, with everything going on, tracking it down felt nearly impossible. Reigo snapped at Murmuru to stand up right now. He was about to teach her a brutal lesson for insulting him with his magic sword, the Dalebringer. Murmuru snapped at Letty to drag Feria and Takaya straight back to her mother. She can't stop wishing she'd had more time with Takaya, because that's exactly how she'd have forged that new magic spear. Takaya refused to walk away and leave her alone, because if they left Murmuru alone, her life would be on the line, and Letty shot back that there was nothing to fear, since Rigo's whole mission was to use Murmuru's body. So she won't get killed, but still, things don't ease up. Takaya refused to leave her stranded here by herself. Then Murmuru leaned in and told him, "I've got a gift for you," and pushed him to whip it into the heart of a brand new magic spear. Also, if she married Rigo, her mother would be hauled right back into the four heavenly kings, so she pushed Takaya to forge a deadly spear for her mother instead. As Letty grabbed Takaya to drag him off, he fought tooth and nail to get free, yet somehow she yanked him away anyway, snatching him along with Feria. When Takaya was forced to watch Murmuru slip even farther away, he couldn't stop wondering, what's the point of having talent and potential if it never leads anywhere? When he couldn't even pull a friend out in a moment like this. He refused to let it end there and swore he'd forge a magic spear for Murmuru and return with it in hand, because he wanted it to be worthy of her kind heart. Murmuru's smile lit up the second she heard that, and right after that, Letty swooped in and dragged Takaya away. He sobbed the entire trip back, and once they finally got home, they rushed to Lady Azasha and spilled every last detail. She screamed at Letty, spat out, "You're a fool," and slapped her across the face. Azasha keeps replaying it in her head, telling herself over and over not to leave her heart exposed like that. She knew Rigo had been sharpening his timing, and this moment was exactly what he'd been waiting to strike. Azasha leaned in and asked Akia straight up if he had seen the village children, who were stuck choking on miasma. She explained that other demons kept targeting that exact weakness, trampling them again and again. After a brutal fight, they finally won their freedom. Lady Azasha had clawed her way up the ranks until she stood shoulder to shoulder with the four heavenly kings. And she dreamed of forging a kingdom where every succubus could finally live in peace. No struggle, no suffering. And for that same reason, she forged her daughter Murmuru into a weapon, pushed her to her absolute peak, until, after countless brutal struggles, she finally made it this far. And somehow, a Feria still popped up and said there's time left before Murmuru weds Rigo makes its move. While everything else was brewing, Takaya swore he'd forge a brand new spear and rush it to Lady Murmuru so she could finally take down Rigo. Lady Azasha figured he might have the chops for it, and she even liked his plan to repurpose the broken spear. But then she turned to him and demanded to know, did he actually understand what dark matter even was? This legendary material was invisible and weightless, and even now, they still don't understand the structure of the spear forged thousands of years ago. So if the demons couldn't do it themselves, how in the world was Takaya planning to melt it down and reshape it? Takaya opened his mouth for answers, and nothing came out until Michael finally showed up and begged for more of that story. Maybe, just maybe, he could help them somehow. Takaya spotted what was left of Michael just up ahead. Michael swore his real form was that crown, an enchanted relic forged to protect Lady Murmuru. Then Feria leaned in and demanded, "So what do you mean you could help? Are you plugged into people who are still alive?" Michael shot back that maybe he didn't have connections, but he still knew Tegakari. Takaya chose to trust him for now and raced right after him. Right before they could leave, Lady Azasha suddenly called out to Kaya and warned him that if Murmuru ever had Reigo's baby, the succubus line would be wiped out, because the weak one would be tossed aside and the survivors would get turned into nothing but breeding tools, just like the old days. So she pressed him, could he really stomach the weight of that burden? And Takaya shot back that some puny high school kid like him couldn't possibly bear the fate of an entire race. But once he promised Murmuru he'd help her, there was no way he wasn't going to save her. Later, they followed Michael's orders and marched back to Murmuru's castle, only to find it smashed in multiple places. Ramai and Yami slammed the door on forgiveness and swore they'd never let Rigo off the hook. Then Takaya leaned in and grilled Michael, asking if he'd spotted any clues. Michael hurried off to hunt for a strange enchanted artifact, something that looked like an ordinary object but wasn't. That place was still soaked in Velg's soul, but now they had to find someone to use the artifact, and all they could see was rubble, nothing else. Then Feria handed them a plush toy with a gentle smile and told them to take it and use it. Takaya said she had the cutest little hobby, but then she shut it down. She didn't want to hear another word about it. They dropped the artifact onto the soft toy's head, and in the next heartbeat, Velg's soul surged into that body like it was always meant to be there. Asking where he was, Velg spotted Takaya and Feria. But Feria couldn't recognize her cuddly little toy anymore. because now, inside it, an old man's soul had taken over. Michael then leaned in and asked Velg, "Do you still remember that hidden room you found back when you got lost and totally stumbled into it?" Velg told him the hidden room wasn't just tucked away, it was the oldest domain in the whole castle, built before Mermuru was even born, and somehow it still held records from the moment the magic spear was created. He never imagined his clumsy mess could one day turn into something that helps other people. Pride surged through him as he led everyone through the castle's twists and right into the hidden room. Turns out it wasn't really a normal door at all. It was a gateway, slamming you straight into another dimension. As they pushed deeper, Takaya suddenly remembered this was near the spot where that slime had dragged him earlier, and the fact it had led him back to it still hit him as a total shock. Then out of nowhere, he spotted a strange maid, someone they had never seen before. They asked, "So are you shy or what?" Marion, yeah, she went by Mary, stepped in and told everyone she'd been ordered by her master to guard this room. Letty grabbed Mary's attention and begged her to let them through, because they've got an emergency on their hands and they're racing to save Mermuru. But Mary doesn't remember a soul named Mermuru, meaning her master is the castle's rightful lord at all, it's someone else. Letty snapped with frustration and nearly went for force, but Takaya snatched the moment back, calming her down, then told him, "We don't have much time." And the moment Mary heard Takaya, she shot him a question, "Wait, are you Takaya?" He confirmed it, and right then Mary swung the door open, saying her master told her to provide what he needed. "If Takaya shows up, make sure you fully cooperate." Takaya snapped it all together and realized her so-called master was the very slime he'd run into back then. And as soon as he stepped into the study, he realized, no joke, he just uncovered the Demon Realm vault. He had no idea there was a whole universe hiding inside, right beyond the bookshelves. Mary leaned in and told them this wasn't just any place, it was her master's pride and joy, a full archive of the entire Demon Realm's history, and now Takaya could use it however he wanted. Letty glanced around as Takaya pressed Mary for an answer about where. "If we had records from the day this demon spear was forged." She swallowed hard and remembered the truth. Yep, they really were locked up here. And get this, those old hammers and tomes from when it was made, they're stored here too. Takaya's heart was pounding. This was exactly what he needed. If he snagged the hammer that could forge dark matter, he could finally forge Mermuru's spear. Glancing around the place, he hunted down and gathered up every record he could find. Takaya leaned in and demanded to know why Mary's master was pouring so much into him. She didn't know a single thing because she was nothing but a ghost, floating in the dark with no answers at all. And her master snapped that it wasn't fair to pick just one side and ignore the rest. Takaya's curiosity went through the roof. How did Slime know him? And the worst part was, he could feel the secrets of this world starting to click into place. But right now, saving Mermuru was all he could think about. And once he was done with all this, he could finally go meet that slime later. He stumbled on the Demon Spear's records, and it captured the entire manufacturing process in painstaking, blow-by-blow detail. Takaya tore into the process, and buried in the notes was a chilling line about a dragon zombie's breath. Letty can't bring herself to risk Takaya getting dragged into something like that. But Takaya refused to back down, no matter the risk. He was determined to grab everything they needed and forge that spear, even if danger came roaring for his head. Remy and Yami told everyone straight up that a dragon zombie was the kind of disaster that could wipe out their entire realm. And it's no exaggeration to call it a weapon of mass destruction gone berserk, screaming past reason and running wild. A ghoul prowled from one shattered demon castle to the next, ripping through rubble for scraps left behind. Therefore, staying near demon castles was pure death, and every one of them chased people to build cities far away. Takaya snapped to the truth because they'd come to smash demon castles, meaning they were standing in one this very second. Suddenly, the whole place started violently trembling, and outside came a thunderous roar that shook the air. Takaya shot back, "So it really is what I'm thinking, right?" And yeah, nobody bothered pretending it was. And Feria leaned in and told Takaya, "All right, time to get to work and make the whole world hear our guild's name." They burst out of the demon castle, sprinting into the night. And there it was, an enormous dragon zombie soaring through the sky, blue flames roaring from its body. Feria ripped out a strip of black letters and told Takayashi, "Sage ever handed you this?" She sent Takaya a message, "If danger hits, use this and get out alive." Because in the guild, his life mattered more than anything. And they choose saving his life over every ounce of work. Takaya clocked what was happening and snapped his eyes to the dragon zombie. Once he finally made up his mind, Letty scooped him up and drove the message home, reminding him that a zombie dragon blasts toxic slime, deadly poison, so he has to hold his breath the second they get anywhere near it. Takaya shoved the job onto Letty, Ramai, and Yami, telling them to cover for him, as he and Faria prepared to snatch the zombie dragon's fire. Velg showed up and told everyone Mary had handed him a jar, one that could trap the dragon zombie's flames. Faria shot Velg a quick thank you, and then boom, they were stepping into the most lethal mission of their lives, to snatch the blazing flames of the zombie dragons. Letty said that if the dragon only hit her with its breath, she'd snatch up that fire for herself, and they can't afford to stretch this out for too long. Takaya secretly wished it would just let everything go, and while he wasn't paying attention, a tiny insect crept up to his neck and delivered a sharp sting, right before he even realized it was there. Faria watched a mosquito swarm fly straight toward Takaya. Then it hit him out of nowhere. Numbness flooded his body, freezing him in place and stealing every last bit of movement. Then the mosquitoes exploded in numbers and it looks like these monsters are spilling right out of the zombie dragon's own skin, like the beast is cracking open from the inside. Letty told them the real danger behind zombie dragons wasn't a mystery at all. It was their true threat. And with that cursed monster swarming with insects, they couldn't get anywhere near its body anymore. Takaya swallowed hard and asked, what if the mosquito threat just disappeared? But Ramai and Yami straight up told him there was no way to wipe out those mosquitoes in the demon realm, because that rule was hammered in thousands of years ago. She shot him down fast, telling him he couldn't let that mask go to his head. But Faria just knew Takaya must have cooked up a plan, so she pressed him, what are you building this time? Takaya swore the item he dragged back from the human world was exactly what he needed. A deadly poisonous mushroom almost killed Mike, and ever since then he swore he'd been hauling it around, testing it so he could figure out how to make more antidotes. And if it's a plant from the human world, it should be able to handle those mosquitoes just fine. And once he brewed that insecticide, they'd blast it over the mosquitoes using Faria's wind magic. Just then, boom, the dragon zombie came charging at them, and there was no time left to breathe. Michael and Vel sprinted ahead to draw the dragon's rage, and every second felt dangerously close to disaster. And Takaya leaned in and warned them to stay alert. They promised him they'd be okay, because the truth was their real power lived in the artifacts, right in those crowns. Michael stepped up, poked the dragon, then got blasted straight in the face by its dragon breath. His body got wrecked to pieces, but the crown, it stayed perfectly intact. Velg snatched Michael's crown and bolted the moment the dragon came roaring at him. They carved out a slice of time, and Takaya instantly got to work, whipping up the insecticide before anyone could stop him. He didn't even drag it out. One breath later, it was over in just a few seconds. Then he told everyone to slather insecticide all over their bodies. And Rami and Yami finally started to get it. Murmuru and Letty weren't just helping out, they were using a human body for a reason. Their hunt to snag the dragon's flames was finally underway. Yeah, they fanned out all around the dragon, then the insects came swarming at them. But they wouldn't slow down for a second, they kept sprinting straight ahead. And the insecticides were hitting perfectly. No doubt now, they were sure Takaya was the real deal. Ramai and Yami launched a brutal tag team assault on the dragon alongside Dark Ray. To trap its movements, the dragon's handler shoves it through the bottle again, drenched in even more insecticide. And Faria unleashed her wind magic, loosing an arrow that tore through the air, cracked the bottle wide open, then blasted insecticide straight across the zombie dragon. Insects started slipping out of the dragon's bots like they were breaking free. Bodies braced, and right there, boom, was their shot to slip in close to that thing. Faria unleashed her deadliest attack. She yanked her mighty crossbow and drove it straight at the dragon. And the giant arrow slammed straight into the zombie dragon's torso. The dragon took brutal damage, and for a while his body just wouldn't move. Faria leaned in and told Takaya, this is it, now we get close to that thing. Letty clutched Takaya to her chest and charged right up to the dragon, swearing with her life on the line that she'd protect him. A dragon barreled toward them, winding up its breath the moment it spotted them charging in. But Letty tore forward like a blur and shot right up to the dragon in no time. They had to steal the organ that feeds the zombie dragon's breath, hidden away inside its mouth. Takaya got him launched into the dragon's mouth. Then they finally laid eyes on the dragon's core, and Takaya lunged forward, driving his blade sheer again straight into it. Then the dragon started convulsing with agony. Letty and Takaya knew they had no time left. So Takaya snatched off a chunk of dragon's core in seconds. And in a sickening flash, his blade melted, taking part of the organ with it. Takaya steadied the blade over the jar, and somehow pulled off exactly what they came for. Their mission paid off, so Letty shot him straight out of the zombie dragon's mouth just as the jaw started to clamp shut. They managed to snatch the ember from the zombie dragon, and Letty leaned in and told him straight up, "You did amazing out there." Now they just had to push through the final step and save Murmuru. In the secret study room again, right where everything went down, Furia grabbed his blistered, burned hand and stitched it up just enough with healing magic. But it never fully healed. Trying to swing that hammer while in this state would be brutal for him. Takaya stared at the hammer, then somehow dug deep and toughened up until he could finally try to lift it. But it was way too heavy for his injured hand to lift. Letty stepped in, swore she'd never let him choke on that burden by himself, and Feria backed her up, telling him to just drive the hammer while they took care of the heavy lifting. Remy and Yami basically said, "If you can't swing the hammer in the demon realm, you're not a real blacksmith." Furia doesn't care how it looks, she just can't hold back and she has to try everything. Remy and Yami made a power move, teaming up with Takaya to work together and help him rush to save their Lady Murmuru. They hauled the hammer to the old stove they'd used back in ancient times. Takaya stared at it like it was the biggest instant stove he'd ever seen, and with Akin's smithing lessons ringing in his head, he couldn't stop thinking about how to craft with it. Now he only has to do the one thing he already knows how to do. He cranked the stove to life using the ember of a zombie dragon, and the blue flames exploded out of nowhere, roaring like they didn't even need a single drop of fuel. They thrust the demon's spear into roaring flames and melted it down to nothing. And now Takaya just needs to clock the plan into motion, bring the hammer down hard. Others jumped in to help him shoulder the heavy hammer. Now he just had one job: keep his car pointed the right way, lining up the direction he needed for the spear's exact shape. He couldn't stop himself, he had to make it, and as he chased his goal, dark matter churned in his gut like a warning, and thought that if NASA ever stumbled onto it, they'd be absolutely over the moon for sure. But the process dragged on too long, and even Feria and Letty were starting to hit their breaking point. Side by side, they somehow endured the agony and forged the demon's spear. Takaya stared at it, then nodded. Yep, the spear was fully finished. And they swore that with this in hand, revenge would finally be theirs. Takaya jammed the spear back into the stove, and it melted again in a flash. Letty demanded to know why he'd done it, and Takaya said, "It's perfect that everything's running smoothly, because that only meant the blueprints were right. But now he's got to keep repeating the grind until his skill finally hits a level where he can forge the strongest spear he can possibly make for Murmuru." He kept trying to bear the dark matter over and over, then leaned in and asked everyone straight up if they'd help him with it. Takaya started remembering everything. How Merle scooped him up and got him hired by the guildmaster. First, he trained under the master again and again. Then he finally met Murmuru and the others in the demon realm. A whole problem erupted in his life, and on top of that, he started learning smithing from Akini. Back then, when Deikyu finally got his arm treated, Merle didn't stop there. She repaired his heart too, so with all that chaos churning in his head, he decided he'd forge a legendary demon spear. Once he was done, Feria leaned in and asked, "So what are we naming this spear?" Takaya figured, "I didn't build this alone, everyone pitched in, so this has to be special." He crowned it the tribe of all spears. Feria couldn't help but point out that his naming skills looked like they'd leveled up too. And that spear finally wasn't just a dream anymore, it was finished, and everyone cheered like the world had been saved, right then. A portal tore open behind them and Lady Azasha stormed out. Then Takaya snapped, asking her what in the world just happened. And she shot back, "I got a letter from Reigo." He tore into the letter and realized it wasn't a message at all. It was an invitation to his wedding, and he begged for her family and friends to come give it one last look and sear that image into their eyes so they can never forget it. Ramai and Yami looked absolutely furious at that insulting move, like, how dare you invite them to Murmuru's wedding out of nowhere? And Takaya refused to let that slide either. But he didn't need to fly off the handle yet, because the demon spear was finally finished, right on time. Letty's already fallen hard for Takaya, and somehow Feria's taken a shine to him too, like she likes his whole vibe and character, even though his fashion sense is still kind of a disaster. And as Asha flat out told them she can't back them up, her position won't let her. And in return, she demanded Ramai and Yami watch her daughter while she was out there. They listened to Lady Azasha's orders and swore they'd stand watch over their clan's future leader. Takaya blurted that it was go time, and told everyone to move out and rescue Murmuru. Mary showed up out of nowhere and swore she had a souvenir for Takaya, and he immediately figured it was just a dumb memo. She told him it was her master's way of thanking Takaya for reading his manga earlier, and then she added with hope in her voice that Takaya could win this time. Meanwhile, inside the wedding venue, everything was about to explode. Mermutu sat there in chained misery, shoulders slumped, staring at the ground as despair swallowed her whole. Then a demon showed up and snapped that the wedding ritual was starting, so she had to come out right now. Right as she was heading out, they snapped at her to stop looking so gloomy, because she was about to carry Lord Reigo's child. She was told with a tremble in everyone's voice that this was a massive honor just for her. But she snapped back, "What if I don't smile in front of Reigo?" They flew into a rage at her, and then, like a lifeline in the chaos, Takaya's voice cut through the murmurs, calling her name. She snapped her gaze upward, and there he was, streaking toward her through the sky as he flew. Takaya leaned in and told her, "I brought the demon's spear, like I promised," and the words hit like thunder. She couldn't believe it. She was thrilled he actually showed up. While Takaya didn't look like he was getting a warm welcome from that person at all. It was Reigo, the demon-slaying general, laughing as he dismissed it, calling it worthless to trust a coward human's words. And he shot a warning at her ahead of time. If she dared grab that spear, he'd make her regret it. He'd prove to her what a real fight looks like, nothing like that fake little farce they tried before. And this time, he vowed to make her break and submit again, right there in front of everyone. He was certain this wedding was about to go down as one for the history books. Takaya snapped at Murmuru to ignore every word that came from the good demon. But it wasn't her at all. She was wrecked over Takaya. She missed him so much, then out of nowhere, he told her to forgive what he was about to do. "This is a diversion," he said. He slammed in close and stole a sudden kiss from her, as it stunned every single person and demon into total silence. And Reigo's rage was boiling from the inside, unstoppable. Murmuru snapped, "What's this for?" and he begged her, "Just listen to my plan." But the moment the words hit, everyone's faces went blank with confusion. Reigo figured Murumuru was totally enchanted by the human world, especially for stuff like that. And now he's set on telling her on their wedding night that demon tribes are 10 times better, while even other demons think the bride and groom are downright disgusting. But none of that mattered to Takaya. He leaned in and told her his plan was a double-edged blade. After he explained everything, he stormed off, leaving her to handle the rest, and he kept up the act by calling her his beloved. Right then, Reigo launched off the edge and dropped down hard. He didn't even realize she was that close to a human, so he ordered her to say her goodbyes before he, accidentally, made her pregnant for keeps, talking like he planned to use her to churn out demon babies. Murmuru slammed him as a disgusting calm artist and swore she wouldn't lose this time. Reigo snapped at her, telling her not to get cocky. She wasn't going to win just because her spear was back to normal. And he declared he'd break her down in 3 ruthless strikes. Every demon in the land practically exploded with excitement over Lord Reigo's wild, fearless claim. Murmuru burst into a chuckle, seeing Takaya's plan finally clicking into place, but the moment Reigo heard it, stress hit him hard. Takaya sprinted back to Letty and Feria. Whoever thought he'd kiss Murmuru just to light her up with love? And now she's got this win locked in for sure. But Takaya swore it wouldn't happen, yet of course, Murmuru still got crushed by Reigo. Hearing Takaya say that hit them like a shockwave, and he whipped around to ask Ramai and Yami, "Was I wrong about that?" So Feria snapped, "What the hell is going on here?" And ever since it all started, he'd felt it in his gut. Something was off, so he shot back an answer. And the fresh wave of terrifying disturbances keeps hitting. And somehow, every time it mattered, fate bent itself to make things work exactly how Reigo wanted. So he finally snapped to the truth. Ramai and Yami weren't just around for fun. They'd been working for Reigo all along and watching his every move. Doubt kept creeping in because just when it seemed brand new, the magic spear suddenly snapped in half without warning. Then Letty's teleport went sideways right at that spot. They got jumped out of nowhere. And right at the end, all 5 of them forged the demon's spear together. He's sure he finally snagged the perfect space to level up his craft skill all the way to max. Even after grinding for days, he was still totally green, and the best he could squeeze out was just about a 20 to 30% boost in experience. And right before the wedding, the demon's spear got forged. Ramai and Yami had set up the whole thing, every move locked in, every step planned down to the last detail. At the time, he couldn't figure out why, but then it hit him. Ramai and Yami can craft too. Their run made the whole time-skipping stunt feel worth it, because they didn't just push through, they activated their skills at the perfect moment and snatched extra experience points, even though they were only meant to carry the weight. And in that rush, he cooked up a plan. And he crafted the demon's spear on purpose, one that would snap after just 3 deadly blows. Since Rami and Yami could feel just how deadly that spear was, they warned Reigo, who now swaggered in and promised he'd wipe out Murmuru in 3 brutal hits. Letty refused to accept this cruel truth, because Ramai and Yami were supposed to be working straight under Lady Azasha. Then Ramai and Yami chimed in, yeah, it was effortless to fool Lady Azasha, and somehow her daughter had inherited her mom's terrible judgment too, because she never caught on to them. Letty demanded to know how they could stab their own clan in the back and sell them out. Murmuru made it brutally clear she knew every conspiracy Reigo was cooking up, and it all came straight from Takaya, who busted him open by using his head. Reigo shrugs it off, he's sure it changes nothing, even if a human somehow figures out his plans. Still, Murmuru steps in, declaring she'll crush him right here and now, but before that, she couldn't shake the question of why Rieger was hellbent on tearing up the peace and dragging war back to life, especially since the human world had just agreed to a truce. Rigo shot back that it was obvious and pressed Mururu, why do you think the demon realm can't beat the human realm? Because their system was failing, and he's convinced that's the whole reason. In the demon realm, everyone was split up by race and gender so they could fit the perfect role and serve it to the fullest. Like the strong, wise demons that the rule nations claimed would fight bravely, while female demons were meant to defend their home. Then boom, those demons rose up and tried to wipe out the whole racial job system, and it crumbled the perfect order like it was nothing. Rigo can't shake the feeling that it was a huge mistake, and he'd smash the system back into place, clawing their demon realm's glory out of the darkness again. Murmuru got spooked by that dumb story like it was crawling under her skin, and he demanded to know when he'd gotten so strong and so wise, because to everyone else it all came down to his weapon, like that was the reason he could crush every fight. Otherwise, his power was nothing but a shiny prop, and she flat out didn't believe someone like him could ever take the demon realm's throne. But Reigo couldn't care less what she thinks of her, and he's totally convinced he was born to rewrite the rules, so he can rule them all and make his name carve itself into history. He sent his 2 men to smash into Takaya and the others. And Murmuru had no choice, she threw herself in front of those attacks, blocking every hit to save them, and right then, after she crushed one demon, the next one was already waiting. Another demon lunged at her and shoved her hard, and she slammed into the wall. With 2 strikes already slipping away, Rigo fired off a warning. She still had one last hit to land, which basically screams she's not walking out on top, so let's cut to it. Letty straight up demanded Ramai and Yami explain why they betrayed them. They shot back that yeah, they've got crafting skills too, and the moment their magic power flared, it was clear it hit hard enough to matter. So people started comparing them to legends like Lady Azasha and Murmuru. But they still don't get why they're forced to do maid work in the first place. Why would anyone sign up with a weak clan that's just going to sink the demon race, when they themselves admit Lady Azasha's future is absolutely beautiful? But they're getting 0 real results and they're done, can't take it anymore. They refuse to let their kids end up slaving as maids, too. Letty can't even process it, those 2 actually went after their own Lady Azasha, the woman who raised them. Even with Reigo swearing they'd get positions fit for their strength once he finally takes over the demon realm. They craved fame for their power, and they vowed to forge descendants even stronger than them. Letty shot them a question, if you cut off an entire week, do you think it'll build a nation? Because to her, that idea was just total crap. She reminded them that Lady Azash's hard work had paid off in a huge, undeniable way. In that victory, it was Lady Murmuru all along. She had the bloodline, plus the power and the real kindness to back it up, to forge the future of demons, and she carried every bit of that legacy from Lady Azasha. So he trusted her and vowed to protect the master who had handed her all her dreams, body, and soul. And that loyalty was exactly what she proudly carried as a maid. Ramayami snapped, wake up already. Because they refused to believe a weak little nobody like Murmuru could ever pull off something big. Murmuru was drenched in blood from the damage she'd taken. Reigo stayed completely unhurt, still standing there untouched. Murmuru lunged in to hit Reigo next. Their weapons slammed together with a deafening crash, sparks flying everywhere. While Murmuru poured every ounce of strength into this attack, Reigo started to squeeze power out of his weapon, and it looked like he was winning big. Then he shoved her away and drove a brutal kick straight into her stomach. He blasted her into the air and she crashed hard right on the ground, lights out. Reigo stepped up and the crowd went wild, fully convinced he was about to snatch the win. Reigo made it crystal clear demons and succubus didn't just look different, They were built with totally different muscle and raw power from birth. No matter how hard Mermuru swings for it, she'll never even come close to a demon like him. So he told her, "Leave the big stuff to me, know your place," then ordered her to sit in the corner and stay quiet. Mermuru wasn't buying that nonsense one bit, and made it crystal clear that being succubus wasn't about boosting Reigo's ego one bit. And she vowed to never let a guy like him bring her down, not for as long as she's alive. Reigo leaned in and told her, "If you don't win, you'll be mine, my wife, and your succubus bloodline will serve demons for all eternity." And because succubi can't take down demons, the entire demon realm would be his the moment she finally accepts it. Once she does, her life instantly gets easier. Back there, everyone was sick of this idiot's rambling, and they quietly pinned all their hope on Mermuru, who kept getting up again and again to throw hands and fight back Reigo. She sensed the next strike would be the final hit of her assault. Still, she threw everything she had at him, and Reigo stood his ground, taking her hit straight on. When their weapons collided, a savage shockwave blasted outward like thunder, and the entire crowd watched Mermuru's weapon explode into pieces right after that third hit. Furia only wished things were running the way Takaya planned, but then he shrugged and said it all now rides on Mermuru. The crowd stared in disbelief. Reigo's words rang true, and 3 ruthless strikes were all it took to smash the opponent's weapon to pieces for real. Reigo slammed his fist down and declared, "I win, this battle is mine." But right as he started his sentence, his gut screamed that something was off, and his hand looked like it was bursting at the seams with something unsettling. Takaya swore he even laid eyes on the blueprints for Reigo's weapon. Dalebringer earlier had a freaky special trick. It could drink in miasma attributes like it was feeding. The stronger Muramuru got, the more power Reigo drank in, until immortal regeneration kicked in, and Reigo knew in his bones that he'd win. And it finally hits him. Now he knows why no one else ever heard of Dalebringer's power. Takaya could tell Reigo was running on pure caution, so Takaya snuck in his own secret upgrade to the spear. After grinding the same levels again and again, he laced the spear's core with deadly human poison, and it nearly killed Mike the first time. He poured every last drop he had into it, no hesitation, no mercy. And once Reigo finally got it, he knew his weapon was slipping from his grip. He couldn't hold on a second longer. He shoved it aside and stood there weaponless, totally exposed. Mermuru leaned in and told him she hadn't fallen yet, then demanded he prove his real strength to her, right now. Even without a weapon, those spectating demons were sure Reigo had serious strength. But Reigo's face told a totally different story. Mermuru looked absolutely furious, and she was ready to settle it for good with a no-holds-barred fistfight. Right as she was about to swing, Reigo snapped into action. He knew he couldn't just stand there. So he slid a tiny blade into his hand, then flicked it like a dart straight at her. She snatched it right out of the air with her teeth and spit it inside like it was no big deal. After that, she kept hammering fist after fist into him, and Reigo totally lost it just to prove a point. Right after they landed those punches on each other's faces, everyone's on edge about what's about to hit next, and then only one of them hacked up blood, and it sure wasn't a murmur either. Reigo took a brutal hit because once he dropped his weapon, his healing stopped dead. Rimai and Yami could barely breathe. Then they watched him drop down before their eyes. Letty finally spilled the truth. Mermuru wasn't the weak one at all. Even the demons and the crowd finally saw it. Reigo was nothing without his weapon. Reigo acted like he still had fuel to spare, and then he dared her. She could see what he was trying to do, but she had zero plans to fall for his little game. As she slipped something onto Reigo's body without a soul noticing. It was one of Erwin's letters, enchanted with a teleportation spell. Takaya swore that was the plan from the very start. Mermuru leaned in and warned Reigo that the law was about to decide his fate. Yurigo just didn't understand why. Until bang, magic tore him out of the arena, teleporting him out of sight and leaving nothing behind. Meanwhile, inside the royal city, the sage. A council was blazing with all 6 sages crammed into one room, and their talks were rolling right in the middle of it all. Reigo suddenly burst out of nowhere and dropped straight to the ground right in front of them. Reigo couldn't even process it. He was staring at the chaos like, "Where the hell am I?" while disbelief and rage screamed, "And how dare they do this to me?" He was still there, but one of the sages couldn't stop staring. "Who is this demon?" he kept wondering. Then one person snapped, "That's the demon slayer general," and demanded, "Who sent you to drag him in? You ever told them it was for her?" And then her sweet disciple exposed this demon's war plans and had him turned in right here. She bragged that her disciple really wasn't that impressive after all. then she moved on. The other sages pushed to deal with that filthy demon first, because they refused to breathe the same air as something so vile. Ever caught that feeling you were right, and before she even finished, she called the Princess Knight, armed with killer abilities that demons couldn't hold back. A sage looked right at her and flat out said she was always acting demanding and pulling random things out of nowhere. But as long as it's fun, she's all in and loving every second. Rigaud's patience snapped. He was done being looked down on, and he was ready to launch the attack. Before he could even take one step, the Princess Knight slammed into him and cut him down to pieces. And she executed him on the spot for breaking the ceasefire. Rigaud spat that the laws were worthless, but everyone just brushed off his nonsense without a second thought, and made sure he never forgot he wasn't worth listening to anymore. The demon didn't even clock that he was dead the instant the Princess Knight carved into him, because now, for real, he's finished. Meanwhile, in the demon realm, Murmuru blasted the news to everyone. Rigaud was dead. So go on, say it loud, and if anyone's got a problem with this outcome, step forward right now. Takaya figured that if demons in the crowd sparked a riot, he'd be in serious trouble fast. But they all clammed up and chose to stay in mourning, waiting in silence until a new leader was picked. Murmuru made it painfully clear Rigaud wasn't the only beast in this mess, and she secretly prayed that one day they'd finally share a home as equals. Takaya finally saw the outcome they'd been chasing. While some people didn't get the outcome they wanted, and this battle turned into a final goodbye. Soon after, at the castle of Lady Azasha, things are about to go down. She praised General Murmuru for snapping Rigaud's scheme in half, and for proving her power was worthy of 4 heavenly kings. Murmuru wanted nothing more than to land a straight-up good job for my daughter. But that lit her up because she made it clear that, in the end, the real credit still belonged to that human, Takaya. Takaya straight-up said Murmuru was the one who landed the decisive blow on Rigaud. Then she leaned in and reminded him this deal wasn't finished yet, and he'd better grind non-stop until the brand new magic spear was finally completed. Then Murmuru leaned in and told Mother she'd always hated the thought of becoming a general, because to her, it sounded like nothing but a non-stop hassle. But after everything that's happened, she suddenly saw the truth. This underworld is packed with problems, and it's got to change fast. And the thought of being blocked from marrying the one she loves, it's pure poison to her. So she finally won't stall. She'll push the crucial changes through and carry out her duty with iron resolve. Azasha was riding on pure hope, and she fully believed everything would turn out right. And Murmuru hit the gas on a new plan: throw a victory party right now. Azasha shouted Ramai and Yami's names and declared they were about to face punishment for betraying a general and throwing Murmuru's life into the line of fire. Those people deserve to be executed by her. Murmuru's gut twisted the moment the whole room fell deathly silent. Then Takaya fired the question at Rami, and you, Yami, aren't you two going to keep making masks for the kids? Or were they straight up lying when they claimed they actually cared about the kids? They snapped back saying it wasn't a lie and that they were telling the truth for real. They were blown away by the thought that their creative gift could save lives, and if they'd met Takaya sooner, everything might have gone down a totally different way. Murmuru snapped that they'd be fine. Mom would just yell at them for a bit, then forgive them right after. Just like she always promises, she said she'd kill Murmuru, but in the end, it was all just talk. Later, they threw a massive party inside the castle. Lights blazing, music roaring, and everyone in awe. And Vel rushed in to thank Feria for this body. Then Michael demanded his own, asking whether her stuffed animal had any siblings. She dragged out a potato-shaped stuffed toy with zero excitement, then made it crystal clear she was a grown-up, not some kid who'd get attached to soft toys, but her reaction totally screamed the opposite. Then Letty teased Takaya, asking which kiss hit harder, hers or Murmuru's. Right after she dragged up that time, she caught him at the guild and kissed him first. Takaya shot back that it wasn't really a kiss at all. It was just a sneaky distraction. Murmuru hated that answer and snapped, so what, let's do it again and see who really does it better. Both of them clung to him, swearing they'd keep him wide awake all night, right up until morning. Takaya shot up with a quick excuse, bolted like something was chasing him, and blurted that he had to hit the restroom. Just as he stepped out of the restroom, he realized something terrifying. He'd been using the bathroom again and again without even meaning to, like he was stuck in a cycle. Then on the ride back, he spotted a shadowy figure lurking in the dark. When he finally looked closer, he realized it was Lady Azasha. He finally clocked it. She wasn't shaken by the deed. She was mourning after killing the two maids who'd been nothing but loved and raised by her since they were kids, all because they broke the law. She couldn't stop wondering if one day Murmuru's hands, still pure, still untouched, would end up soaked in blood too, and she begged for Takaya to finally tell her. If this whole battle even has a purpose, it's only to twist those ideals. Takaya shot back, "I'm a crafter," and you could see it in his eyes. Every time he made something, he pictured exactly what people wanted. As long as you can picture it in your mind, they can build anything. And just like that, he's convinced Murmura will one day craft the exact future Lady Azasha is dreaming of. Lady Azasha stayed planted on her spot while Takaya darted back to Murmuru and Letty. And finally, things started clicking into place for them. Out in the distance, someone shouted that they'd saved Takaya, only to admit it happened while he was fighting with his hands tied by sheer disadvantage. He backed him in everything, loaning him the underground archive, then steering that dragon zombie straight to the castle. Even then, it was just a 10% shot, and somehow Takaya still pulled it off. The slime snapped and transformed, revealing his true form. He finally blurts out his real name, Mitsuya Tejikari. And he turned to his other companion, China, demanding her take on whether Akaya could really be trusted with the whole world.